Eric Peronnard is joining us on the podcast.
Let's do something together. Let's elevate the sport in a way that's going to get people excited. We have to bring all the best of the world in America to race. The Europeans are used to travel. The Americans are not. The Europeans, as we speak, they are packing up their bike to go to freaking Indonesia. And it was so hard because everybody's saying, you're going to kill the kids. We don't want to see that. I'm like, guys, they have a brain. They know what they're doing. And when you have Justin, who I love very much, taking out the French champion, you're like, oh my effing God, what are we gonna do? We had to secure the hotel. COVID happened, and then WSX, they chose a different direction. Could have worked, but didn't.
But I also firmly believe that without WSX, we would have never got SMX.
I would agree with you.
This episode is brought to you by Yamaha and the all-new 2024 YZ250F. It's no secret that I've been a big fan of this 250F.
Where would you go right now if you want to win a lights championship?
Star Yamaha.
And in 2024, Yamaha has migrated their latest chassis platform to the quarter-litre King. With the new chassis designed to give you flex in the right areas that allow for maximum feel through the turns without sacrificing stability. There's also an all-new Ergos package designed at slimming down the bike and updates to the rider triangle to improve rider comfort. The Yamaha still has that same exciting engine package that has become a modern icon in the 250 class, rocketing Star Racing to the lion's share of the last decade's titles. Combine this with Yamaha's Bluetooth connectivity for easy mapping and engine monitoring, and you have one of the best production 250s on the market today. To learn more, head to YamahaMotorsports.com or click the link in the description below.
I met a gypsy.
That's why we get along.
Exactly. It's feel very grateful to be where we are right now because I'm looking at a guy that basically is like me. He's been lucky enough to make it.
Yeah, career. Well, let's just jump straight in where we left off. Eric Peronnard is joining us on the podcast. We've been trying for years to make this one happen, and I'm stoked we have. We've seen each other all around the world at all these different occasions, and we're finally getting to sit down and do the podcast, mate.
Yeah, that's exactly why we couldn't make it happen, because we keep seeing each other all around the world, and it's never the right time nor the right place. So, hey, super grateful to be here. Thanks for finding the time.
No, we got a few hours now. We can just relax, lock in, and spend some time. If people are in the industry, they would have definitely heard of Eric Peronnard, but to people that are not so behind the curtain, they probably haven't heard of you, but they would have 100% went to, watched, experienced. Like, you've touched some part of the sport that I would say almost everybody has seen or been a part of.
Hopefully so. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. Being a kid in France, dreaming about moving to America and work in the motorcycle industry, and doing it, making it happen, and rather luckily and successfully. So it's definitely something that I feel very blessed about, and I know I'm not the only one in that spot. You're one of them as well, and we are few that just, we just came to another country, whatever it takes. We wanted to be part of this wonderful motocross world, because it's motocross world at the end of the day. It's dirt bikes, it's what we love.
When was the first time that you knew you wanted to do this as a job?
When I was 15 years old, and in my bedroom in France, and the walls were covered with American posters, from Bob Hanna to Winnebago RVs and stuff like that. I was like reading an article that was actually about Roger DeCoster, and Roger was saying that the future of dirt biking was in America, and it was very convincing. And being
really, so there was just an article where he just explained that that's where
exactly. That was I can tell you it was written by French guy named Alan Kuligovsky. That's not a very French name, but it was like,
Yeah.
I read that article. It was an epiphany. I said, okay, I'm going to be in moto. I'm going to be in America. End of story. And it took a few years to make it happen, because it takes, as you know, moving from one country to the other is complicated.
Yeah.
And but made it happen. And then, like I tell Roger, I say we've known each other for 40 years now.
Yeah. So what was his arguments like? What was his reasoning for saying that the future was in the US?
He was one of the first one to believe in US motocross. So he came here. He did see the grit the American riders had. The industry was booming. I think for an intelligent man like Roger, it was pretty obvious, like the future was here, And at the time, we were like talking moto, and we were thinking moto and America was not working together. It's like, I remember all my friends, I was telling them I'm moving to America, like, what are you going to do there? It's like it's cowboy land. It's not moto land, and it was just a different point of view. Now it's like it's Mecca. You have to come to California, to US, to Florida to be part of the moto world, But in the early 80s, it was definitely not the case.
Yeah, it's funny. I was literally listening to a thing last night. It was two English guys, and they were talking about why Americans are the way that they are. And they described it so beautifully. They were like, the Americans are like Brits with self-belief and self-confidence. Yeah. So when you're in Britain, and I think Australia as well, you have this like very self-deprecating, tall poppy, crabs in a bucket. No one's allowed to think they're too great. No one's allowed to be like too overly ambitious. There's kind of like this mean that everyone goes to, and Americans kind of like don't have that in a sense. Americans are very confident, very ambitious, like very gonna make this happen, and they almost like celebrate that type of behavior in a sense, And I think that's one of the reasons people want to come here in a sense, or it's one of the things why the American dream became such a thing, right? But if you think about, you go back to England when the boats were leaving for the US, before it was the US, you had this A/B test. So you had a group of people that they're like, hey, come to this crazy new land, and it's vast open spaces and this huge new continent and this frontier mindset. You had A was the, no thanks, that's crazy, I'm going to stay here. Yeah. And then B was, let's go to America and let's have a crack. And so the whole entire country was built on those people that initially said, fuck it, I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it persists now, that mentality.
Yeah, and it's, when I came to America, it was really, really rare to have Europeans. So we were kind of like aliens, literally, and that was like, my first trip in America was like in 79, and I knocked at everybody's door, from Answer to JT Racing to Fox. They say, hey, I'm French, I'm a moto racer, not very good. I want to see what you're doing. And everybody opened their door. They say, oh yeah, let me show you our place. And it was, you couldn't do that today. I mean, people would laugh at you. You wouldn't make it through the receptionist, but in the early 80s, it was like an oddity, to be, and I'm sure it would have been the same if I was Australian or something. Nobody was actually realizing what was going on in America at that time, and from O'Neill to John Gregory through the Fox family, all those people were like so welcoming. It was pretty amazing. It's I was born in Europe, but I was made in America. So it's kind of like, a combination of understanding what you're living and what you're finding here. But that's a big picture.
Yeah. And so what was your first introduction to motocross in France? Like, what got you into it?
I grew up in the Alps, in French Alps, so I was definitely...
near Switzerland?
I mean, Grenoble, which is an hour and a half from Geneva.
Yeah, okay. So in that area?
Yeah, in the area, very close to Switzerland, very close to Italy. So like in a corner of France where you basically go in foreign countries before you go in your own country. Because it's more fun to go to Italy or Switzerland than it is to go to cross France. But that just opened my mind about foreign countries. Yeah. And, I would say at 15, the odds of me being in a ski business was pretty hard. Pretty big, because I was a pretty decent skier. I was passionate about anything on snow, and interested in a new wave of skiing, which was freestyle skiing, coming from America as well. So that was my first connection with sports in America, was through freestyle skiing. And I don't even know, because nobody in my family was riding motorcycle. One day I grabbed a magazine, and that was like, I'm gonna be a motor guy. And very quickly I became a motor guy, forgot the skis, and riding, as much as I could, working in motorcycle shop, promoting some races on the side for fun. And next thing I knew, it's like I was in the bubble. The bubble was small. It was in a region of France. But then, you can burst out of your bubble, and could know people in Paris, magazine people. They offered me some jobs. I was writing articles. Any opportunity you have as a kid to be in the motor industry. And I'm not the only one like that. My generation, we were ready to work 24 hours in a dealership to build bikes, and the next day go racing, and the next day go to school. Not so much, but that's pretty much how we grew up.
How was the scene in France at the time?
Exciting. It's. I remember sitting on my first motocross bike. It was a Honda CR 250, the silver with a pipe underneath. And like, you sit on that bike and you feel like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I want to be there. And then, you end up riding and you realize how hard it is. Yeah. And then, next thing you become a pretty decent rider. And I came and raced in America. I came here and raced the Saddleback, lined up between Glover and Ward. Wow. Yeah, that was short-lived. By the first turn, it was I just had to wait for them to lap me. Yeah. But the experience was there. It was like you have some genes sometimes that you can just thanks whatever for making you be that guy. Meeting. It's like. It's just, I was talking with a friend the other day. I'm meeting Jim Gennard in 1980 in his garage selling BMX grip, and getting to know the guy before he became Jim Gennard.
Really?
Yeah.
So you knew him all the way back then.
Yes.
So explain who Jim Gennard is for people that don't.
Yeah, Jim Gennard is the founder of Oakley, and most likely one of the most brilliant businessmen in the motorcycle industry.
And then Red Cameras.
And Red Camera after. So on a side note for that, he hired me like a couple of years later to do a survey in Europe, and because he was ready to launch sunglasses. Yeah. And I went to see few dozen opticians, a sunglasses shop, and they basically kicked me out, telling me, there's no space for an American brand, and
really,
it was like totally rejection. And it was a big lesson, because you think about somebody that's been so successful, and if you rely on just talking to people and say, hey, would you buy the eye shade, the first big success of Oakley, and like, people were telling me, are you kidding? Get out of here. It's not going to work. So, it's just one of those anecdotes, and like I was crazy stories, like when I first time I came, I followed the Trans USA, which was a Trans AMA. Yep. And I was pretty good friend with the late André Malherbe, the world champion, and his mechanic was very heavily in Scientology, so he was trying to convert pretty much the entire team, in US. So I came to California here, we went to Honda, and the mechanic took me and my girlfriend, and he took us to the Scientology church and trying to convert us. And it was like, what are we doing here?
That's so wild.
There was no Tom Cruise at the time to tell you it was an idea.
Yeah.
So it's that's what you do when you travel, and when you ready to accept the beauty and joy of getting out of your bubble.
Yeah, because, like the unexpected and the unknown. Yeah,
and it's just. Just in 79, I came 6 months in US just to immerse myself in the moto industry. And I was 19 years old. I bought a van in Canada. I just drove. I went to my first race in America was Red Bud, for the Trans USA.
No.
And
first race in America is in Red Bud.
First race. And they were like, oh my God, this is unbelievable, And then, I followed all the race, Unadilla, and I was 20 years old. I was already kind of like a sponge for the American moto culture. Went to Daytona, went to see the Baja. I mean, all those things that we grew up with. Like it was all in magazines. Suddenly you basically do it. And then a few years later, I decided, it's okay. Now I have to stop dreaming. I have to make it happen. So that was, I came in early 85 with a friend of mine, Jackie Vimont.
Yeah.
Which at the time was the best French hope for motocross. He was the first rider to come and train in California during the winter. So we came together, and I helped him. His English was not as good as mine at the time, so I helped him navigate. The guy that picked us up at the airport was Jim Castillo.
Castillo Ridge.
Yeah, CTI. Yeah. So it was like, once again, guys that have made such a big impact on the industry. And then, Jackie and I, we were during the week, during the weekend, I was helping him for the racing, and during the week, I was just going to see, people to get a job. And it was. And Jim O'Neill was the first one that gave me a shot. He said, hey, you can be my sports marketing guy, but we didn't call that at the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, it probably wasn't called sports marketing then, right?
It was promotion.
Yeah.
And that I was lucky because, he was hiring Malherbe at the time, and Malherbe was a friend of mine, so that kind of helped, the connection. And they say, oh, you can take care of Andre, and, it's what we did, and then I worked for Thor. And then I met my wife, and just like gave me some strengths, and we pretty much started our own business pretty quickly. And after that, it's plenty of things, plenty of lives.
Yeah. So where did you meet your wife?
Oh, it's a fun story. It's a moto story.
Okay.
So it's a moto story. I was living in El Cajon. A good friend with Brock and Ricky, Brock Glover and Ricky, and somehow Brock was going to race the Paris Supercross, and I was not. I was not going there. That's the only one I missed. It's in 1985. And
only one you've missed.
Yeah, the only one I've missed. And he asked me, he said, hey, my girlfriend is going to a party. She doesn't want to go alone. Do you want to go with her? I'm like, sure. I mean, going to a party, but it sounded like at 25-year-old, it sounded like a gift.
Yeah.
So I went to the party of Brock's girlfriend, and I met a girl, and she told me, hey, I've got Christmas party next week, and the party with Brock's girlfriend was fully moto. I mean, Ricky Johnson,
really?
It was Life's the Beach guys, Beaver and all those guys. It was really fun. But I met a girl there that said, hey, I've got a Christmas party next week for my family business, for my employers, would you just go with me? And I said, sure, I'll be your rent-to-date. It's not a problem. I'll go anywhere. And I went to that party, and the company was run by my wife's family. And I met my wife there, and that's and she wanted to travel the world. I said, I think I'm the guy.
Really?
You better get a passport quickly.
No way.
So that was, and my wife was in school in San Luis Obispo. She was doing Cal Poly, and we went there. I was living with her, and one day we walking the street of Cal Poly. She's wearing a Brock Glover T-shirt, and we run into Brock. I was doing a bicycle race there, and I introduced her to the guy you have on your T-shirt.
That is so bizarre.
Yeah, and it's been great. It's been great.
So what year did you guys meet?
Late 85, and we got married a year later, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Quite rare for an American chick to want to travel the world like that.
Yes.
Back in the 80s.
Yes.
Like a lot of American people now don't even own passports.
I know.
Like it's not
I know.
a big
and
thing.
It's like I remember like she was looking at me and she was like, well, I want to travel the world. And I'm like, sure, I'll show it to you. But it was a joke and a tease at the same time. I didn't know it would work out so much because I think we've been in 50 or 60 countries already. So,
wow.
and counting, so.
What was the first place you guys went?
France.
You took her to France?
To get married.
Really? Yeah. That's so sweet.
Yeah, so we went to France. We traveled all over Europe, actually, and got married and came back and basically started, very quickly we started a new concept that was the adventure bike business.
Okay.
So it's like we're way before our time, which was very interesting in a way that nobody knew what adventure bike was. It was not. It was not.
It wasn't a term.
It was in Europe. It was slightly. I don't know if because of Dakar. So Dakar had created that segment of adventure bike, and I was thinking maybe it can work in America. So kind of like went back to Europe, met with the Husky people, with the Yamaha people, and we ended up doing a deal with Yamaha, and we started the first adventure travel business maybe in the world, because we had to, we had to create everything. I had to fly to New York, with a proposal and go from insurance company to insurance company in Manhattan for them to understand what I was trying to do. And finally, I found an insurance company that said, yes, you can do that. And but one thing, we don't want Americans on your tour.
Oh.
And I say, okay. So because of liability and stuff like that. So you can do that with any nationality, but no Americans. So that was not a deal breaker for me. So I went back, put the project together, went back to Yamaha in Europe, and we did that for 17 years. That was one of our, big success. And we got about 5,000 people to travel. It was a big operation. We had employees, big trucks, support vehicle. It was pretty fun.
That's awesome. And so your wife had no involvement in motocross at all?
No, my wife grew up about a mile from Carlsbad Raceway, and she didn't know there was a motocross track there. So
no way.
That gives you the level. I mean, it's like she had never seen a motocross bike, I think. I mean, closely, maybe in the back of a truck or something. But she's a nutritionist by trade, and she was very interested in the sport and all those things. So that made her pretty much a natural,
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so what gave you the idea to do that, like as your first business? Just the
American dream. Travel, selfishly, you want to travel, so you want to find a way to finance your your addiction. I've been in 50 states in America, and because every time I was thinking, I want to go in Alaska, so I was building up a tour in Alaska, and I was, and I want to be in New England. It doesn't matter. It's just like everywhere is interesting. America is a fascinating place.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's and we as non-born in America, I'm sure it's the same in Australia. When you talk to your friend or my friend, it's like there's California, Florida, New York. End of story. I'm like, you guys are crazy. There's so much, and even
just California, there's so much even.
And it's like I remember when I came here and looking for a job when I was moving in '85. Just the idea, visiting Fox in Northern California, I was like, no, I don't want to be in Northern California. It's like it was not even acceptable to be in Northern California. I wanted to be in SoCal. That was like, you reduce your bubble to a small SoCal bubble, and but that's kind of like the being cute in many ways,
Yeah. And so you guys did the tours all around the US or globally?
Yeah. I mean, globally as well. We picked up a program from Yamaha Europe, Yamaha Japan. All the Yamaha network was embracing us. So we took people, in Mexico, in Australia. We did major Australia crossing.
Where'd you ride in Australia?
We did Sydney to Ayers Rock. A couple times.
So like Simpson Desert?
Yeah, that was amazing.
That's on my list, eh?
Yeah, it was amazing on Super Teneres. And I never went faster in my life on dirt bike. 120 miles an hour, 200 kilometers an hour, like really full speed in fifth gear on a 750 twins. It was just, it's good to be young, put it this way.
Yeah.
And no, Australia was a fantastic experience. We love the people there. It's like you said earlier, it's kind of a hybrid between, British and American, and then in many ways it's super cool.
Yeah. Wow, I had no idea that you did the tour company. And so 17 years you did that.
I mean, it was one of the business. Then we were organizing a convention for Yamaha US. We're in Sedona organizing that convention, which is pretty corporate work. And in the middle of a conversation, I hear that they are looking for a dealer in Las Vegas. And during my 5 years in Europe before moving to America, I'd been lucky enough to start a Suzuki dealership in my hometown and be quite successful with it, and sold it, then moved to America, So I told those guys, hey, you're looking for a dealership in Las Vegas? I said, I was the youngest Suzuki dealer in France. I know a few things about doing that. And and they looked at me surprised and said, sure, that's America. That's a good thing. It's like, anywhere in the old world, it was like, you're kidding. You're like 30 years old. We're not listening to you, And I said, hey, seriously, if you want to build a dealership in Las Vegas, I could be your guy. And they say, okay, just tell us what you think and go check. The next weekend, my wife and I were in Vegas. We're looking at a piece of real estate because, there's territory for dealership. You cannot be exactly where you want because it was an old one that was...
within a certain amount.
So you had to be... And we found an acre on Boulder Highway, which was, pretty close to Sam Boyd, actually.
Yeah.
And... basically, we put a down payment on it. We came back to Yamaha, say, "Hey, this is it. We have a land. We can build a dealership. Are you going or not?" Fortunately, I had a lot of good people at Yamaha that loved me worldwide, and I had support from the network because of all the tours and things like that. And they gave me the green light, and we built the dealership. We opened it in 1993.
Yeah.
And it was instantly super successful. And we sold it basically to bankroll the US Open in 98,
Wow.
So, a few things. Keeping busy.
There's so much going on.
Yeah, it's like my own head is spinning. When I think about what you say, no, it's not possible. It's like, it's funny because you say what you did and you think like you're lying to yourself. It's not true, but I can guarantee you I will not lie to you.
Yeah. No, it's so funny. Like, I mean, I can just relate in so many ways. Like, obviously it's doing different things, but I just like, I don't know why, but I just had a drive to come to America and just like keep doing it, and just the random things that you do, and there's so much that kind of you do over the years, and you just kind of trying to keep a lifestyle going that you want to live.
Exactly.
It sounds like you just had this idea of like who you wanted to be, what you wanted in your life, and it revolved around riding, your family, and and being successful at business to kind of sustain that. And it's just like you were one of those guys that I guess reverse engineered your life. You started with the end of, okay, what do I want my life to be like? And then whatever happened like underneath that, you were just cool with it.
That's very well said. The reverse, it's like, what you want to travel. So how can you travel on a motorcycle and make a living and be able to have a family and do the normal things, and no, it's been amazing, and great people, chance to meet people. We met like 10 years ago at TKO, and it's just it's humbling in many cases. You have to realize that how many people have been helping you, throughout. And 10 years ago, I did a party at an Enduro cross in Ontario where I invited the 30 most influential people of my 30 years in America, and it was super cool. It's not about crying or whatever, but just like I wanted to find the people that were like, hey, they give you a chance,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and that is something that is priceless.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's you have to remember the people that gave you a chance, you know, and you know. And the first one was Jim O'Neill. You know, I came here and said, yeah, sure. Take the office in a corner and start working. And it's like, you know, that's amazing. You know, I mean, and then, of course, you forget, you know, throughout your life, you kind of forget a little bit who gave you a chance. And at some point you come back and you say, yes, there's plenty of people that you're not self-made.
No,
you have
no.
people that help you.
Yeah.
And trying to give that back. It's like, you know, riders like, you know, a lot of riders have been wanting to give them a chance because it's like they're good people.
Yep.
You know, and one of them is like Patrick Evans. You know, he was on your show not long ago, and Patrick is a super cool kid. You know, he's like coming from a great family. I know his parents and everything. And I was like, yeah, I was seeing him come, but it's just at some point you have to give him the chance. I say, come with us. We did the Hawaiian Supercross. Say, come with us, yes.
Yeah.
And then you want to jump? Yeah, you can play with the freestylers. You have to. You know, you can't be in the box. You have to be a little bit loose sometime. And look where he is now. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true what you say. Like, you find these people along the way, like that they definitely give you a chance. And I had an opinion when I was younger, like in my 20s, that like I was self-made and I didn't come from any money. I just like a very normal, average, like low-key family, you know.
Same here. Yeah.
And I was very proud for a long time of like, I got myself up by the bootstraps and I made this happen for myself. And I had this like very grandiose sense of like being this self-made person. And I can sit back now and like just pinpoint, yes, I may have made decisions to do certain things, but the people that I met along the way, like they're the ones I owe everything to, you know. And I can think of like Wes Williams, for example, Ryan Walters. I stayed at his house for 2 months, and you know, like Jeremy Malott.
Yeah,
he's one of the most influential people on my life, you know. And so you realize that you're in no way self-made. Like it's such a small element. It's like there's so many parts luck. And then there's just so many parts other people's graciousness and other people's generosity that lets you live the life that you end up living.
No, absolutely. It's you couldn't say it better. It's you know, most of the people you mentioned, they're very close to me as well, and they're great people. Like we have a mutual trust and engagement. Like we just dreaming to do things together. It's just a matter of doing the right thing together, not anything together.
Yeah. That's so true. It's funny. So my wife, this is her first. Like you met Anna at Imagination, and
she's lovely.
She's been doing all the Supercrosses with me. She's basically for the last 12 months just been on a full American tour, like just doing whatever, going wherever I'm going, and she didn't get Supercross for the longest time. She didn't get motocross. She just like wasn't a world that she come from, you know.
Yeah.
And if you get a few races in and you start seeing the same people each weekend and you start seeing the same really nice people every weekend, and then you're enjoying this thing together and you know the role that each person plays. And as we got a few rounds into Supercross, she was like, oh, are we going to go to the next race? Are we going to go to the next race? And, you know, you go on the press box and you see Kiefer, and then you see Darkside, and then you see Wygant, you see Brayton, and ever it's always how's the family, how's it? So you end up in this, like you said, it's a bubble, but it's a bubble filled with a lot of cool, nice, like-minded people, and it becomes like a bit of a traveling family, and there's like a wider community too.
Correct.
So you've got, you know, motocross and supercross in America, and then you've got the GPs in Europe and the Dakar community, and like you go all that, the X Games community, there is this huge bubble, and we're all these kind of like-minded people, and like you said, you kind of work together on cool, fun stuff, and you just start to be a bit of a family.
Absolutely. And I think there's being not from the home country makes us, because you're the same case as me, as long as you're doing the right thing, I think people are really liking you even more. You know, I think there's a, you know, inherent respect in America for people that came and did it and were not born here, as much as there is a pushback for all the assholes that come here and don't make it.
Yeah.
If you have the luck to be coming here and treat people, properly, and I think there's a lot of respect for you.
Were you ever scared of doing it? Were you ever scared of going out and trying to make it happen?
Scared all the time. I'm scared shitless right now. I'm a week at X Games, and it's I know our passion is dangerous, so it's not. I don't take it lightly. I mean, I'm here on the side of the actors. And it's really what has been differentiating me from a lot of other people that work in the industry. It's like it doesn't matter how much I'm paid or whatever. My bottom line is I'm on the side of the actor. And it's I want to make sure that we give them the best tools and the best setup to do what they do best safely.
And were you ever scared to leave home? And were you ever scared of failing? And because it was so ambitious what you did.
I don't feel so, because I just did it without even thinking too much about it. And it's like when you get to that part of my life, which a lot of people would call retirement, and you look back and you say, God, I was freaking crazy, or stupid, or
both.
Exactly. It takes both. But yes, I'm always scared. I'm not a happy, successful person. I'm a scared, questioning person. I mean, it's deep inside. I'm just to be honest, it's not.
So why then can a person that's like scared in a sense just take these huge risks that other people aren't prepared to take?
That's a question I'm asking you, Dr. Jace.
I know. I think about it all the time, mate.
I know. I don't know, and I'm sure my wife and kids are looking at me sometimes like, God, he's so crazy. You know? And I keep being that way. That's just I can't stop riding. Everybody says, "Oh, you should stop riding." Like, why?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, no, I don't want to stop what keeps me alive.
Yeah. Because I mean, I think the same thing. Like when I look back at my life now, even just the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Like what we've had to do to be in the position that we're in now. Like we've been literally living in an Airbnb for 18 months.
Yeah.
All over the world.
Yeah.
And it's so shit.
Yeah, but it's so cool too.
It is.
I'm envious.
Well, it is, but it comes with like so much stress, and it's like you just put all of these things on your shoulders, and it's just like, why? Like if it's uncomfortable, if there's like risk associated, like why am I that kind of person? And it's like, when I came to America the first time, like, dude, I had a ticket. I thought I was coming here for 2 weeks. Yeah. And then Rockstar fucked up my flight booking, and I was here for 2 months. I had like $300 in my bank account. Yeah. I was 20.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, who does that? Why would you do that? Like, that's not really smart. But you're like in that same position where you were just like, fuck it, I'm going, I'm doing it. Nothing can stop me. I'm gonna make it work.
The idea of having a regular job has been kind of crossing our minds quite more than once. I'm like, God, waking up at 8, going to work at 9, and be done at 5, and go ride your bike after that. No, I mean, and it's not you. So at that stage, you cannot accept it. It's a different world. I'm not looking at other people that don't do my lifestyle, your lifestyle. Like, it's just it's the way we're wired. Yeah. And very often I would like to be wired differently.
The other way, yeah.
Yes, but it's the best thing we can do is do the best we can for our community while we're doing it, because this energy has to be used, and it's better for the good.
Yeah, no, it's such a great way to put it, eh? Yeah, and so all right, so you do the dealership, the Yamaha dealership, and then you get that successful, or you get it to be successful. Why not just keep having a dealership that's successful forever? Like, why sell it? Why put it all on the line to do the US Open? Like, why?
Yeah, I mean, so we go back to Paris Supercross. Paris Supercross in that 1988 made me their front guy in US. So I was kind of a motor journalist for that for Motorvert and all those European magazine, which kept me in the motor loop where I wanted to be, because doing adventure tours were great, but really my heart.
You were like kind of disconnected from the scene.
It was motorcycle. I was happy, but I wanted to be with my peers. I wanted to take Jeremy McGrath to do races and stuff like that. So that came naturally with the Paris Supercross, and from the Paris Supercross, the job I did with the riders, and the luck I have to be able to communicate well with all those guys, and the trust we all built led me to do more races. I helped Barcelona, Milano, Torino, Sofia. I mean, there was Supercross everywhere at the time.
So you were like the liaison between Europe and America.
Correct.
So you were the guy that the industry found as like, okay, he knows all the riders, he can speak different languages, and he can connect these dots and get these riders over to Europe in the off-season races.
Exactly. And there was a big trend, Supercross, exhibition Supercross, as we would call it, was booming. So I got the chance to do all the best races. And that led me to a point in 95 where my wife and I were driving down from Vegas, from our dealership in Vegas down to San Diego to see her family. And she tells me basically, why don't we do a race like Paris in America? And I was like, yeah, why don't we?
Yeah, right.
and right away, the big question mark was the real estate and location. They say Paris is successful because it has good people doing it and good riders, but it's also successful because it's in Paris.
Yeah.
You can't really neglect the location, because
amazing.
Events are like real estate. Location.
Yeah.
And so very quickly we had our eyes on the MGM Grand that was building an arena. Went to see them right away, like in 96. And
so how did you go about getting a meeting at MGM?
Connection in Vegas, having a dealership opens plenty of doors. There was a fantastic late friend named Ron Loomis, who was kind of like the gatekeeper of Las Vegas. He was born there. He knew everybody in Vegas. But I mean, everybody is like, he had desert race with the boss of the Nugget to the Caesar, and he got me a meeting, and we went there. I remember going there with a VHS players and showing them, plugging it up in the office of the MGM Grand CEO, and showing the Paris Supercross on a VHS. Hey, it's what we want to do. And they were like, we don't want dirt in our place. No, it's too dirty, And so I said, okay, let's see. And few months later, Honda does the convention there. And Honda doing that convention, they allowed dirt to be built to have a Jeremy McGrath and Steve Lamson doing a couple laps. So once the dirt was put on the floor, it was not a virgin anymore. So we went back and we got the green light to do it.
No way.
Yeah, that's thanks to Honda to put 3,000 tons of dirt to do a fake Supercross track. That's how we got the green light. And they say, okay, now you've done dirt, how bad or not bad it is. Now it's like, and they, I partnered up with an older guy that was working with Mike Goodwin at the time, one of the originator of Supercross. Because I needed to have that, older presence with me, because
more established.
Yes, more established, connected to the world. And it's how we launched this project. And it's short of launching US Open, it launched my professional life as well with the Fox family, because really, I went to see the Fox brothers and explained the project, and they were like, we're in. Whatever it takes, we're going to make it work. And it's like they became, quasi partner in the journey, and it was the Fox US Open. The idea was only to elevate the sport, because we wanted to bring what is Supercross today. So the idea was to bring pageantry, fireworks, laser, all the stuff you see at Supercross. It was not happening. I mean, in '97 at Anaheim Supercross, you had the national anthem, and that was it. And couple firecrackers. By '99, it was completely different. That was the accomplishment we had, and that was quite a moment. I mean, to make that happen, and we secretly announced it at the final at Sam Boyd in '98. We started, we put some flyers on all the cars and everything, and did some ads in Cycle News or whatever we could in '98. We didn't have too many mediums. Magazines were like 3 months out.
Yeah.
And the project was fully embraced worldwide. We sold out. I mean, it took maybe 6 weeks to have 28,000 seats sold out. So at that point, we were like, wow, what do we do? Now we have to deliver.
Yeah.
And that became a challenge by itself because, we were having a lot of issues with political issues, the AMA, what not failed, it was Live Nation, it was Pace at the time, Pace. It was not, we didn't realize how much we would be troubling our world. It's like we definitely had kicked the hornet nest.
Yeah.
And then, that took a little bit of fun away.
So nothing's changed
Yes.
in 2024 to 1998.
Yes.
Still the same shit you got to deal with.
Exactly.
If you're trying to do something new.
And it's some of the same people too, but it was once again, it was just shaking it up, and short of, we had some issues. We were very disappointed about the dirt. We could only get some dirt. The good dirt was not available or whatever, or it was boycotted, or, we'll never know. And the dirt was too soft, and we had a lot of issues getting the track together. But, it worked, and Damon Hoffman won the first US Open, most likely his biggest victory of his life. Glamour-wise, and with Jeremy McGrath just behind him, it was pretty amazing.
That was a special time to be in Supercross too, because it was like you're almost discovering what the sport can be in America.
Yeah, exactly. And we had you weren't there in '98, right?
I wasn't. No.
Yeah,
I was 10.
Yeah, you and Jeremy Millard from Red Bull. He was there as a spectator, and he said he was
really.
Yeah, he was absolutely
in '98. Jeremy was there as a spectator.
I don't know if it's '98 or '99, but he was there, and he was like taken. And it's not an accident that we got to work together, because he was really much of a big fan of what he had experienced there.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can ask him; he'll tell you.
I would. I'm definitely gonna ask him about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's that was the U.S. Open. Was, I would say, in many ways the peak of our career with my wife, because I don't think we could do much bigger after that. It's like when we establish a Supercross in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand, and that was it was big. It was big. It's like, what do you do after that? And after that, everybody is having ideas for you. Are you going to start a Supercross series? Are you going to do? I'm like, no, I just wanted to do that.
And so why did you never do a series?
Because there was no space for a series.
So at no point you thought like we could take on the AMA? And...
No, that's not the way I think anyway. So fortunately, within a year, our relationship with Pace, which we'd call failed now, but it's not failed. It's not unrelated.
Different people.
Different people got better. I mean, Gary Becker was the son of one of the Supercross founder, and we got to be super friendly together. And he said, "Hey, you're the American dream. I want to buy your business, and I want you to work for me."
Really?
So that was in a nutshell what happened. So he made us a super good offer. We sold. I became vice president of international business for Supercross monster truck, and I kind of stayed in there for 4 years, and started the World Supercross.
So all right, so how does that work? So they bought who bought the US Open? Pace.
So that was crazy years. I mean, I think by the time we sold to Pace, by the time we were paid, it was Clear Channel, and by the time they hired me, it was Live Nation.
Wow.
The company was changing names every 6 months. I remember having all those cards in front of me, and it was like, oh my God. So by the time I left, which was 2004, it was Live Nation,
So what years did the US Open run?
US Open run from 98 to 2010.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And was taken over by Monster, by Feld, but Monster took over and made it the Monster Cup.
The Monster Cup.
The Monster Cup was the US Open.
And then so you get bought out by the Clear Channel.
By the Supercross group.
By Supercross.
Yeah.
And then you stayed on for 4 years.
Correct.
And then you worked on like the World Championship part, which was the pre-series, essentially.
Yes, it was a very crazy time. It was the time where AMA was trying to get away from that group and made that deal with that Jam group, and I was able to help a lot there because it was I have a global vision, and it was super interesting. Like I explained to them, hey, why don't you go and see the FIM and become the World Championship, because that would be, you don't have to deal with the AMA anymore, and it's easy to say now because everybody's gone, all the people we're dealing with. And it's like, wow, let's go, let's fly to Europe, meet with the FIM. And it's how the Supercross Championship became an FIM World Championship.
Okay.
So I won't take full responsibility, but a good share was my influence, making them understand that. And really, it was Roy Jensen and I that were the two guys there that knew what was going on outside of America. So that happened, and the next thing we knew is we were promoting races in Spain, in Holland, in Geneva, and so that was the only time the World Supercross was really with the best riders in the world.
Yeah. And so what were the pain points with the AMA that they were trying to get away from back then?
I think it was purely greed. I think AMA was trying to raise the fees, and the Supercross group was not ready to pay more, and they basically put the Supercross Championship on bid to get more money out of somebody. And the people that qualified had the money but didn't have the competence. So that's what happened, So it fell miserably. It was a really bad story, not good for the sport for sure.
So why? I guess why do you have to buy it off the AMA? Like in terms of they're putting it out to bid, and then they're trying to get more money for it, like trying to get to the highest bidder. But like, why are we buying it off the AMA in the like?
Yeah.
Why keep them around? Is there a way to just like boot the AMA? Like, what are they?
I think it would have been possible. It would have been possible at a time, but at the time, we're talking 20 years ago, the manufacturers were very, very close to AMA, and especially Honda. And Honda being, the big one, It was difficult to do anything without the AMA. When I did the US Open, I remember people telling me if Honda is in, AMA is in, and vice versa. Because to get a sanction, so I got a Honda, to come, and AMA came in. It was very complicated time for that. There was a lot of influence. There were Honda executives that were very, very influential with the AMA. And I think, the manufacturers and AMA was one. I think it's different today.
Why was that?
Just old school. I think it's just the people that were running the show 20 years ago were part of the establishment. The AMA was very important to them, and they were controlling each other,
And so what does the AMA do in your eyes?
The AMA is a sanctioning body.
Okay.
So technically...
So, like, if you go to boxing, it's like the Nevada State Athletic Commission.
Exactly.
And then they have the rules in place. They make sure people follow the rules. They have guidelines. So they're essentially like a government body, but for like a very niche specific thing.
Exactly. So they have two sides of it. First is protecting the biker's right, and then it's protecting all the rules for racing. People like us, we care only on the racing side. What are they doing? Yeah. They're writing rules in the rule book. They say, oh yeah, maybe we should let 4-stroke come in, at 250cc for 125, but those things were done very naively, years before technology was at, in speed. And now suddenly we're like, wow, what's happening?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm just trying to connect some dots, because the reason I love talking to you is because you're kind of Switzerland, even though you're French. Like, you're cool with
I'm
everyone.
very close to Switzerland. My heart is in Switzerland.
So, but you know all these things, and you have good relationships with all these people, and you're a guy that can kind of connect dots, And so, all right, so that's just connected a bit of a dot as to why Honda, so why would a manufacturer want to be close with the AMA? Well, if the AMA is right in the regulations,
yes,
and then Honda is making products to then fit inside those regulations, that would be why there would be an interest in Honda and AMA, or manufacturers and the AMA working together.
It was even more than that. I mean, the top brass at Honda were part of the board of the AMA. So it was, and there were Suzuki guys and Yamaha guys. Some brand were a little bit, like Kawi was never too close to AMA for cultural reason, but some brand were very close to the AMA. I think it's different today.
Okay. And so initially there was a time where you could have had a split from the AMA, do you think?
I think it would have been possible. I witnessed a couple attempts of discussion, where people thought it was possible. They could have been going NASCAR, which you basically create your own sanctioning body, which is what NASCAR is not part of the FIA, Federation International Automobile, because they have their own rules. So NASCAR is kind of like the model of what motorsports wants to be in America, and they were very wise to do that at the time, but you need to have that window that allows you to be successful. And it's a political window. So it could have happened. I'm not sure it could happen today.
Why not today?
I feel like the AMA and the manufacturers are having a good communication. It's not like, my way or the highway, like it could have been years ago. Years ago it was more. It was definitely more challenging, more like I'm the new sheriff in town, and you're gonna do what I say. Today, I think there is some progressive people around motocross, and that want to work with the manufacturers. Don't give them the desire to be independent.
Okay. All right. No, it's cool. Like, I think at least for me, this is painting like a bit more of a global picture of like everything that's at stake, and like, obviously I've just come off the Davey Coombs podcast, and then there's the drama between them and Glenn Helen, and there's all the moving pieces and parts, and it's like a ecology almost, you've got
absolutely
plants and soil and air and water, and you've just got all of these elements that need to come together for this thing to actually be alive.
Yeah, and it's for the MXGP scene also, I was extremely involved in helping Longo to be in America, to do things. And I just wanted to do that for the sport, because I felt like you don't have a real championship if you don't race in North America. So that was part of created a lot of tension. It's been, everything is good. Like in 2008, when there was a Butts Creek Motocross of Nation, there was like pretty much, it was, really bad negotiation between AMA, MX Sport, MXGP, and I took it on myself to go and see David Clabo, the owner of Thunder Valley, and say, hey, I think we can have a motocross of nation at your place within a couple of years. And we made it happen, and it was just having the opportunity to be with the right people that were progressive, that were not only trying to cover and protect the territory, because a lot of, it's not a moto problem. Everybody wants to protect their territory. It doesn't matter if you're a doctor, if you're a racer or whatever, you want to protect your territory. And it's good to a point, but at some point you need to have exposure to the outside world,
Yeah, and you could see that, like, I hope, if Davey listens to this, I hope he's not offended by it in any way, but it's like, even in the conversation with Davey, you could see that there is an element of, like, maybe things that he would have admitted to, like, oh, we could have done this better, we could have done this better. A lot of times it seemed like that just came out of, like, an insecurity or, like, a fear of losing something.
Yeah.
And then you go into, like, this famine mindset as opposed to, like, a feast mindset where it's like, you know what, you guys go do that over there, we'll be successful here. Like, instead of focusing on just having the best product continually going forward, it became like protecting your asset. And I mean, particularly on like the Villopoto thing, like he mentioned that there was some bad blood there between MXGP and MX Sports because Villopoto was going to Europe, but he was like, oh, he was our big star. And it's like, there's always a big star.
Yes.
There's always going to be a big American star. And it's just like, who's the next guy, So it's like, it almost isn't worth being stressed about your big star going to another series. Like, that kind of just makes motocross better globally. And there's going to be another big star.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like the mentality of sometimes big promoters is you don't worry about the guy today because there'll be a next guy tomorrow, and it's kind of selfish sometimes, but it's a reality. There'll be the next Jet Lawrence will be coming. We don't know when, and hopefully it will be French instead of being Australian. I'm just kidding you. It's hard,
yeah. No, that's that gives a lot of good context as to the things that were at play around then that kind of like led us to the situation that we're in now.
Yeah, it's and it's funny for us, that we represent the two nations that are so influential on the motocross scene.
Yeah.
Because really, it's like I keep telling people, Supercross is a triangle. It's US, Australia, Europe, and Europe is France. There's not too many Spanish rider champion yet. We're working on that. Next year should be exciting, but but we didn't choose that. It's the way it is, and for obvious reasons, culturally and space, and the fact that our country mates love moto. And it's but we have no responsibility in that. It's just like we keep seeing good guys.
Yeah. Well, it's what Marv and I were talking about on the podcast. Is like so many great Supercross riders have come out of France, and there's got to just be some kind of like, I guess, jump off point. The first guy to do it that then creates the next guy that then creates the next guy, and then enough people get together to make a series that the young riders can come. Like, and France and Australia are probably the two next biggest countries in terms of creating their own culture around Supercross.
Correct.
And I think that they're then probably the countries that have had the most champions.
It's very simple for France. Creation of the Paris Supercross, known as Bercy for many years. And then that led to a French Supercross championship because the kids wanting to go to be part of the Paris Supercross. So you want to be good at Supercross. And then the next thing you know is you have to move to America to get better. And here we go, 3 steps, Paris Supercross, French Championship, America. In Australia, it's kind of the same.
Very similar.
Yeah, even though the Supercross Championship in Australia is not that old, the French Supercross Championship is at least 30 years old. So it's been building champs for 30 years, and it's maybe even 35. I wouldn't be surprised, So
Well, my dad raced Supercross in Australia.
no kidding.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, I'm not sure what years.
Yeah.
I should do like a real detailed history lesson with my dad as to like the years that.
So at least you came from a moto family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of my earliest memories are on a motorcycle.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so we had like Stephen Gall.
Yeah.
He was kind of like the guy that he was probably like who's the big first French guy in Supercross?
I mean, the first big French guy is Jacques Vimont. He was the first
So he's
first
like
motocross champion. He tried Supercross many times with not very successful, typical MXGP rider that doesn't necessarily want to be a Supercross guy. I mean, JMB became like, he was like an anomaly. It's just like JMB was. I remember meeting him first time I met him was at the Dianza Cycle Park, next to Riverside. It was one of the famous motocross tracks in the 80s. And this kid is like coming out of nowhere.
Did you know him from France?
I knew of him because I was in the scene, but I never met him until I met him at Dianza when he was practicing with Honda. And I'm like, God, I'm looking at this kid and say, where did he learn to ride Supercross?
Yeah.
He was the Jet Lawrence of his time, for France. I mean, obviously.
No, I mean, he was just incredible. Like, you can watch clips of him from the 90s and you see like a very, very, I was wondering when you were going to drink your coffee.
Yeah. Yes.
You can see a very, very modern technique, and that it's wild that you can go back to the 90s and zoom in on a guy that has technique that would hold up in 2024, just on like old, outdated motorcycles.
Yeah.
But so I think Stephen Gall was like, we had an early guy that he was like Mr. Motocross.
Yeah,
like
I know him. I met him a couple of times. He's a super nice guy.
Brilliant guy.
Yeah.
So I think, you get these guys, and I might be missing some Australians like before him, but at least in like my family and my generation, he was like this guy that was like the pinnacle of the sport in Australia, and he almost like modernized the sport, or like I guess brought it somewhat into the mainstream. And then you're right, you get these like series that get built, and then guys that want to then go test themselves against the best, and then you slowly kind of create this feedback loop. But it was the Australians and the French that almost embraced Supercross more than any other country.
Yeah, which is, in Australia, you are your own continent, but in Europe, it's very strange that only one country became.
It is strange.
Yeah, because Germany obviously had a super guy. We're still in business, Ken Roczen, but he's more an exception than a rule.
Yeah.
England, Italy, Spain. We've seen some guys coming out.
Sprinkles,
But only France has been able to deliver, I mean, there's always a French guy in
a championship.
In a championship in America, I know it's like that makes it pretty cool. And, I mean, we have good French guys right now. I think they're good people.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely have a lot of respect for the French riders that come over, because oftentimes there's like a big language barrier. Like the Australians, I think there's like a massive cultural barrier.
Yeah.
But you guys have a cultural barrier and a language barrier.
Yeah.
Which makes it twice as tough.
And more.
Yeah. So in terms of the US Open, what kind of like rough revenue would you guys have been walking away with? Like, was it a successful event in terms of like profit?
Unbelievable.
Really?
Unbelievable. And the problem was it was very successful financially, and we had given away over $350,000 to the racers.
So you're still making money giving away that much.
And of course, my vision and my partner's vision, my wife's vision of successful is not the same as the world company, Amazon or whatever. I mean,
it's relative.
It's relative. But for us, it was super successful, and everybody walked away, with a big smile and a lot of money, and that was kind of like the upsetting point. Like suddenly it was like the bubble had burst. Like you could actually make money and pay the riders, And I think it was the underline that created a lot of trouble, because everybody was like, you see, you can spare 300-400 grand at every race for the riders, and that didn't change, And I understand it was not it was kind of fun to poke at the 800-pound gorilla, but at the same time, it was not the intention. But that made things change. Just like the way we treated the show, we put 50 grand in the opening show, which is in 25 years ago was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, wow. And then showed up at Anaheim 3 months later, and suddenly we're like, wow, we have a laser, we have this, we have that. So it was a necessity, to make it happen, because I think people, just like the World Supercross, created some good things.
Yeah.
Just before being successful, it created some good things. Us, it was different because we launched the project and it was instantly financially successful.
Mm-hmm.
We needed to do something good, but the fact is it was no question of who's going to pay for it, because it was paid for. We had sponsors calling us. Everybody wanted to be part of it, And it was funny because, the world of Supercross was very tight, airtight, meaning let's say at the time it was Parts Unlimited being a sponsor. No other company could touch Supercross.
Yeah.
It was all exclusive. And when we came in with a US Open, suddenly all the other company had
Fox is like, finally.
Yes, finally we can be owning an event. So they were pouring investment in it, and a big party and everything. It was amazing. It was really something that we felt like it changed Supercross, not for the racing, because the racing is, let's face it, when you're in an arena, it's never going to be as good as, on a real stadium. But the big picture of Supercross changed that day, because what we had created in Europe was suddenly in America, and people could not deny it. It's like, wow, it was like a giant party for 2 days, and not for the racer, but
Sorry. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, no problem.
That's my bad.
You can edit that.
Yeah, and so no, this is this is fascinating. I didn't know that the US Open had this much impact behind the scenes, and so you have this success, and you are putting, giving away $300,000. It's still, turning a profit, and
correct.
then going forward, it kind of changes the dynamic of the sport. But so, what perspective does that give you in 2024 on prize money?
I think it's finally getting there.
Okay.
The US Open shaked up the US scene, and then when the World Supercross was announced 3 years later, 3 years ago, that's also woke up the situation. It was a wake up call, and that brought the two promoters together, which is good.
Yeah.
And everybody seems to have done extremely well.
Yeah.
I think motocross riders, you have to realize, 25 years ago, past the factory rider, everybody was making a living on racing the US Open, going to Paris, going to Geneva, going to anywhere. That was how a top guy was making a living. They were making more money racing outside of US and racing in US, and that was a big change, and the 90s riders like Larry Ward or even Jeff Stanton made fortune racing outside of US, and so the outside season was unbelievably lucrative.
Yeah. And so, why do you think that the US series just never paid? Why did our sport? Because we are pretty far behind in terms of other sports, in terms of event prize money.
Yeah.
And even the championship I'm not even sure what the championship bonus pays, before the SMX thing.
Yeah.
And round by round.
It was about $150,000
for the championship.
Yeah, for the championship.
And probably 10 grand a night?
Yeah, I think let's say 10 years ago, not to go back, if you were winning most of the races and winning the championship, you were getting $300,000 for the season.
Okay.
That was for Jeremy McGrath, let's say 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Jeremy's more like 20 people.
Yeah. But so why do you think that motocross just never paid in terms of inside America in the series, motocross and supercross races?
I think it's, as you use that word, I like it. It's reverse engineering.
Yeah.
You know, the manufacturers are taking care of everything, always did. You know, they pay the big bonuses, you know, $100,000 per win, $1 million for title. I'm just making up those numbers, but they're not far from reality.
Yeah.
And that kind of demotivated the promoter and the sport to actually do something. And you know, it's pretty good to be in a sport where, you know, your athletes and your actors are paid by somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, I would love that. I would love to have a dealership where my employees are paid by Yamaha instead of paid by me.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, you know, why would you like to change that? You know, and it's
Unless somebody makes you.
yes, exactly.
Huh.
So it's been working. It's definitely a different viewpoint. I had plenty of ideas that could change that and stuff. And you know, you age and you're like, oh, you know what, it's working. I remember talking with my good friend Mitch Payton and talking about stuff. He said, let's go racing. Let's not worry about, you know, changing our racing world. And he's right, you know, in many ways. But at some point, we will have to change something. You know, it's just, you know, because manufacturers, we're very lucky that we work, you know, we have Honda, we have Yamaha that build motorcycles, because those guys, they make billions, you know, doing other things.
Yeah.
And they bankroll a race team that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when Yamaha spend $50 million a year to race, you know, they don't make that up in selling YZs, you know, or YZ, as you would say, you know.
It's funny. There's I can't remember where, but somebody brought this up the other day, and I had to explain to them. I was like, so you realize that Suzuki will never, ever sell enough RMZ 450s.
Yes. You mean the RMZ?
The RMZ 450 to pay Ricky Carmichael.
Yeah.
And I'm
or Ken Roxon.
and I'm of the understanding that a big reason why factory Suzuki went away is because they were paying off a debt to Carmichael and Dungey and Reed and Stewart.
Yeah.
It took a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing they didn't insure the wins in the way that some
It's
other manufacturers can do.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're looking at, you're paying Ricky what, $3 million if he wins both titles and a whole bunch of races through the season, and then the next year you're paying another plus his sign on. So like you're probably paying, you know, this guy over the course of 4 years like $10-15 million. Yes. There is not that many RMZ 450s that are getting bought. Like, it's not profitable.
No, absolutely.
And so I guess that's kind of that's kind of where the problem is for me with the whole paying the riders thing, because like the whole burden has been on the manufacturers for the longest time. And you see manufacturers come in and out and in, and the support wanes as a result. And that's where, when I had when the World Supercross was first announced, obviously I knew the people that were behind it. Yes. I had a lot of faith in the people that were behind it. They ended up not lasting at the company. But I just felt like we did need to move towards a model that the events being profitable and the series being profitable would pay the riders to where it would make the whole thing feel a little bit more sustainable.
Correct.
Over the long term.
Yeah.
And you're investing, like you said, in the clowns that are in the circus.
It's,
you know,
and it's having the manufacturers so involved is the best thing and the worst thing at the same time, because the market value is, you know, I mean, most of our top guys are making a lot of money.
Millions.
Yes, millions. And you know, it's coming from some unknown source. You know, it's like basically tomorrow Honda can decide to pay Chase Sexton $10 million a year. that's not a problem. They can do that, and nobody will lose their job. So by doing that, a Sexton could switch to Honda back and make 10 million a year. It's great for Chase. I'm very happy for him. If that happened, but the fact is, it creates so much tension for all the other teams suddenly that,
because you're setting like the market value.
Exactly. And as much as I'm very happy for all the riders, they don't make, they earn every dollar they make, and it's a very dangerous sport, short lifespan, as we know. It's just like there's something strange about this entire situation, that definitely would need to be studied. But I don't think anybody wants to study it.
But I think it's cool to know that the first time that you did the US Open, you put up $300,000 worth of event money, so that come off the bottom line of the event.
Exactly.
But it was still profitable.
Yes.
And so I wonder, you go to Supercross, like especially this year, like everything was fucking packed.
Unbelievable.
Like
makes you feel so good.
So all right, let's just hypothetically, how much money do you think you could make off a sold out A1? Just purely from an event standpoint.
It's you have to understand that Feld has a fantastic deal by renting A1 an entire month, doing A1 monster truck, A2 monster truck. So on that level, it's so brilliant that they're cutting down the cost of dirt and the venue, which are the two biggest costs of a race. The dirt and the venue are like $1 million right away. So I'm not sure they could make it on one race because it's pretty expensive to work in California, as you well know. So, all respect to what they're doing, because I'm sure the month of January has to be a killer month for those guys. When you think about it, they sell maybe 200,000 tickets
over
just in
a month,
and I'm in 1 month. 5 events now, maybe 150,000 for sure. So after that, it's just a matter of taking a calculator, and a sponsorship is pretty high. It's good, but as a single promoter going into a stadium today and building a race, it's really challenging, especially with the inflation we had the last few years. I'm telling you, it's like building a exhibition Supercross today is gutsy. Is gutsy, and we're going to do that in Australia, by the way.
I want to get to that. So you think, like Anaheim, let's say if the prize purse to win A1 was 150,000 for first in the 450, like that's completely doable?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're still going to make a bunch of money?
Yeah, it's, after that, what, you make $1 million, or you make 900, or you make 800, money is still there, and nobody's complaining because the manufacturers and the sponsors are subsidizing the racers. That's the way it is. You win a Supercross today, you walk away with hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't think, like we say in French, money doesn't have any smell. It doesn't matter. It's just money. So yeah.
So you think, would you be a fan of the guys getting paid more now in terms of like from a promoter standpoint, or do you think we've kind of got it right at the moment?
I feel like since SMX, since the 23 season, most of the 20 top guys are making a good living. And of course it's it's 1 to 100, but it's still a good living. I think you have a lot of riders that actually are making a good living racing, and that it's better than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. 20 years ago, out of the top 10, nobody was making a living. Now you maybe have 20, 25 guys making a living. So there's a progression. It's better. Are we where we would like to be? I don't know. It's a complicated conversation for sure.
Yeah. And then I think more and more what I realize these days is, like, all of that aside, so with everything being said, what Feld and MX Sports do give is a platform.
Yes.
And as an individual, as an agent that is like in that ecosystem, you get a chance to leverage that platform for yourself.
Exactly.
And I think, we're examples of that.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
we have leveraged
Yeah.
what Feld and MX Sports and MXGP and Formula One and all of these sports and the worlds that, the bubble that we exist in, like, no, none of them pay us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't get paid. Or
Yeah.
I get paid by one
Yeah,
manufacturer, which
yeah.
is amazing. But
Yeah.
in terms of like going to those,
Yeah.
so we have found a way to like leverage
Yeah.
the platforms, and I think that no matter what you get paid as an athlete, no matter what the structure is, if you're able to be in this world and like on the carousel, as Davey says, like you're actually given the opportunity to leverage a platform for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not only Supercross Motocross, it's every form of dirt biking. In 2004, I created Endurocross and I started to pay the riders right away. It was the first time the riders were paid. We never did a race where...
So you invented Endurocross.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I trademarked the name, invented the name, and that was kind of like, hey, let's try to do the same thing in dirt biking, in Enduro, because the guys have no audience. So the reason
there's no platform.
Yeah, no platform. They were not getting paid because nobody was seeing them. GNCC, a wave of rider goes in the wood and you wait until they come back. That's not a spectator sport. So Endurocross was created with the help of some Spanish friends that had created indoor enduro, which was too pure for me. I wanted something with a punch, more American, so it was Endurocross. It was like, we're going to build obstacles like we build Supercross obstacles. You're going to have logs, it's going to be like a Supercross track for enduro guys. And, that took off very well, and we had a generation of off-roaders like Taddy Blazusiak and guys that actually made a fortune racing. But that said, you go to Erzberg and you win a rock.
Yeah,
that's all you win. And most of the races, Romaniac, all the other races, they don't have a purse like we had at Endurocross. Or when I brought Endurocross to X Games, guys were making tens of thousands of dollars. There was a window from 2006 to 2014 where enduro riders were, making a lot of money for enduro, of course, not for tennis or football, but they were making more than they needed to make a living. Yeah. And that was an example of how you can make things work. You have to share the wealth. Yeah. You cannot keep everything for yourself. That's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's always been like my push when I talk about these things, is like you can see what could be done.
Yeah.
You can see the way, like I could keep way more money than I do for this podcast, but I don't.
Yeah.
Like there's a certain level where it's like, okay, that money can either stay in the bank, or I could do shit with it in terms of like improving the product, investing.
Doing events like your race and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's exactly.
And so that's one of the things what I guess I'm always pushing from my end is like, I want to pressure people to invest more.
Yeah.
I'd like to, if I can have any effect on those things with the conversations I do, is like, I want to encourage, like, no, you need to make money. Yeah. Everyone's got to make money. Don't keep all of it.
Yeah, don't.
Like, be
what
more.
Goes around comes around. There's really a return, and it's absolutely. You couldn't agree more. Greed is good to a point, but you can't be greedy 100%. You need a little bit of greed to convince you that you should do it, but because you're gonna make a little bit of money. But honestly, I never did any business thinking about the result. I just did it because I thought it was right. And when you do things that are right, very often it works out for you. You know, so and always you could make more money out of any project, but that's not the name of the game. We are little people in the motorcycle industry. We're not MMA or anything like that where the units is hundreds of millions. It's like we millions is big. The motorcycle industry.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm always trying to push for like that mindset of like the investment will pay off. And, like I know that, there's been talks about like a Netflix series and that kind of thing. And it's like you hear that, oh, they wanted this much money and they said no. And it's like, motherfuckers, spend the money.
Yes.
You need to spend the money. Please spend the money. You will 100% get this back.
Yeah.
And again, it's like you invest and then you try and apply leverage to what you created with that investment. You know, it's all about putting in and then creating more leverage off the platform that you either build for yourself or the one that you're given, you know.
Absolutely. And it's, when you're lucky enough to have a platform, you should embrace things, you know, like go back to the US Open in 99 or 2000 before we sold it. You know, there was a little bit of a you know, a chatter about four strokes. You know, I mean, Yamaha was kind of like with a YZ400 playing in motocross and stuff. And I said, hey, let's do a four-stroke class. We're going to have a four-stroke class at the US Open. Of course, you know, fortunately, we didn't have the social media at the time, but we got fried for the ideas. Oh yeah, you crazy! Supercross is not four-stroke and whatever. And we had that first four-stroke race, you know, and it was semi-convincing, but, you know, everybody came in with super nice machinery. People were doing, the typical white brother doing like, and it was really something. And at the end, everybody said, it's never going to work at four-stroke. And 5 years later, everybody was on a four-stroke. So, you know, you have to give a platform like the kids. The kids, I wanted to expose the mini kids.
Think about what you did, dude, for Supercross when you had 85s at the US Open.
And it was so hard. I've got goosebumps because everybody's saying, you're going to kill the kids. We don't want to see that. I'm like, guys, they have a brain. They know what they're doing. You know, I mean, it's like a couple kids didn't have a brain. But, you know, most of them, they knew what they were doing. And now it's like, you know, the kids are, you know, and we did that again in you know, I was, you know, it's a story that touched my heart and gives me a lot of goosebumps today because of what happened last national. But in 2009, I was asked by the Paris Supercross people to find the best 85 guys to bring them to Paris for an exhibition, and you know, we brought the Masterpool family, you know, and Jesse Masterpool was the best guy at the time, so he came and with the family we built super good friendship.
They're such good people.
Yeah, in my kids' age, and we went to Paris. I mean, especially my wife and the kids, because I had a little bit of work to do. And you know, we really built a really good, you know, time. And you know, very sadly, following year, Jesse, you know, got this tragic, you know, accident and passed away. And you know, I kept telling I want to do something for Jesse. So about 3 years later, I finally made it happen by creating Junior Moto X, which was a push to bring the kids into Supercross, you know, and everybody was super excited about it. We had a lot of sponsors. Everybody came in. We rented an arena in Oklahoma City, and the dirt was fantastic. We had, you know, I mean, hundreds of riders like any amateur event, and we created the Jesse Cup, you know, which was in memory of Jesse. And the first year, everybody fought for it. And the second year, Ty won his Jesse Cup. And at that time, you know, Feld realized there was something to do, and they did Supercross Future, you know. So that was a moment once again, you need to rattle the cage. You know, I mean, you need to make sure people are waking up. I did it purely to honor Jesse and just show that there was something left of that wonderful kid, you know, with a trophy, a Jesse trophy. And, you know, within a year, all the money went to Supercross, you know, and a lot of people feel like, oh my God, you were upset. I'm like, not really, because I had done what I wanted to do. It was to bring attention to younger riders. You can't bring, you know, a 17-year-old that never raced Supercross and throw him in Anaheim and say, okay, learn. It needs to be step by step. So, you know, Mr. Masterpool, Jerry helped us build the track. You know, we did everything to be as safe as can be, you know, and it was a fantastic experience, you know, and by year 3, you know, I remember with my partners, we basically said, no, it's not, you know, now we've lost all our sponsors. There's Supercross Future. Now there's a platform for them. You know, it's always a little bit, you know, annoying to have those kind of situation. But at the same time, you have to realize where you are, who you are. You're not the company with hundreds of employees that has 20 semis. You just try to do everything yourself, with your buddies. That was good. No need to go any farther. That was something that I was very proud to have pushed and made it happen.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. I never knew that the Thai won that race.
Yeah.
Just a couple.
And
2 years
since
later.
then it's been up and down for Thai until last weekend. So that was definitely a chilling moment and very, very sobering to watch.
How amazing was that to
that
see?
was amazing. Even Hayden Deegan was gracious to Thai, which is amazing.
Yeah. Man, it was a fantastic ride from him, and he's such a nice guy, and they're such a cool, nice family, and I mean, it would be so incredibly hard to keep racing after something like that happened.
It's crazy.
I think just to come full circle like that, and to have Ty be able to win an overall in the way that he did, it was Mitch's 300th win as well. Like there was just so much tied into that moment.
No, it was definitely. I mean, the outdoor championship has been amazing. I mean, it's like every race.
Crazy.
Like every race, I'm like, no, I'm not. And then you're like, no, I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, dude, how bad was the week off?
Yeah.
I was so over it. Yeah. What do we do on Saturday? Like, what are we supposed to do?
Fortunately, I was able to ride. So it's like, I love the race. I love when the race are on the West Coast when I'm home in Florida because I can go ride in the morning and come back and watch the race.
Yeah, before it starts. So maybe we'll talk about the WSX thing for a little bit. So, I mean, even it's funny, like, so I was so vocal when it came out.
I know.
Because I was definitely like pretty over the level of pay that the guys got in terms of, it's great to have the manufacturer support and like that's fantastic. But if you don't have that and you're one of the best going, you should still be able to make money, right?
Correct.
And I think that was like because it's the same as any business or the same as any athlete. Like there's a level that you need to be able to invest in yourself and into your career to reach a level of excellence at that craft, right? So like to be Ricky Carmichael in 2003, 2005, I mean, he probably spent $1 million a year on himself. Like between trainers, between facility, between private jets, between like, so that's where the money is important in a sport. Is because how much can you invest in yourself to become a better version of yourself? Because that's essentially what sports are doing. Every year you get this compounding effect of the knowledge and the experience from the years before, and the bar just keeps getting raised and raised and raised and raised. Like that's how you progress in things. And when there's like a real blatant like cap on what people have the potential to then make, that caps like how they can invest in themselves. So it's just growth gets stunted there, right? And then you've got less of a pool to pick from. You've got like, there's such a dramatic follow-on effect that comes from that. And then when you've only got the one series that makes all the rules and has all the, they've got all the marbles, right? Competition is what breeds, that's what free market democracy is built on.
Exactly.
And it's exactly what you did with the US Open. So when Corona was around, the COVID times, so I'll back up. So you have this announcement that comes out from Feld and MX Sports. We've combined, we're doing all this. It's been in the works for years. We've had this idea for so long. But it's like 5 months after the WSX announcement, and then there's guys leaving contracts because they're not allowed to ride. It was a bit of a mess. But what it did do was create a lot of extra value in the series. And, I mean, from what I can gather, the most impactful thing that it's done, and I've spoke to a bunch of people like on and off record about it, is uniting MX Sports and Feld was just huge. Like there was just this gigantic rift between these two opposing forces that just in no way needed to be there.
Yeah.
And it was there for like fucking 20 years,
I know,
right?
and they were not even mentioning a guy that was a motocross champion during a Supercross broadcast. Or like,
Didn't exist.
yeah, it didn't exist. Like it was talking about, he won twice Supercross title and 5 times the outdoor, but nobody was mentioning it. It was crazy.
A crazy time. And so I guess when you listen to Davey tell the version of like his version of the story, the whole COVID safe to race thing kind of got the conversation started, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like in 2020, that's when the conversation really got going between the two.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd love to get your perspective on it,
absolutely.
but I don't think
the catalyst was WSX.
Yeah.
I mean, WSX got people into a panic, and rightfully so. I mean, personally, I had a target on my back instantly. You know, I mean, it's like everybody was looking at me like I'm gonna get involved and stuff. This is evil and what. I'm like, whoa, guys, let me make my own decision before you pull the trigger. You know, because it was, when Feld left FIM, I knew something would happen. You know, and
what way?
In one way, like I knew there would be a World Championship Supercross. And I knew it would be in my environment. You know, I mean, I knew it would be, our Australian friends.
It would be a foreigner that would come.
It's weird. That's I knew, and I worked with the Aus-X people 10 years ago, helped them start the first big Supercross in Australia, and I knew they had the talent to do it, but they were young, they were excited, and I think it was the right project for them, but it was not the right project. I mean, now it's just like I kind of tell you, I knew the phone call was coming. I knew like, hey, we need to talk to you. We're gonna buy the rights of that. I'm like, wow, just be careful, guys. Just be careful. It's you're gonna spend a lot of money for building something that you're gonna build. You're not gonna spend money for something that you already exist.
Yeah.
And that became what and. I'm very sad to say I was 95%, correct all the time. It was just the economic of it, this idea that we're going to expose Supercross in countries that don't care about Supercross doesn't fly with me. It just, the idea that we're going to do a Supercross in Indonesia, it's not economically sound. Like once again, the triangle, Australia, Europe, US. I mean, North America. That's even just outside of North America.
Canada.
Just Canada is a challenge.
Tough to make it work.
Yes, I revived the Montreal Supercross in 2015 for 3 years until COVID. And I'm telling you, I was like, wow, this is not the same as US. I mean, the mentality is a lot more cautious and not. I really thought that we're going to be embraced. It was a challenge. People were, as
receptive.
Yes, as I thought they would be. So all that experience kind of taught me a lot of things. You have to go where you are welcomed. And we know when we do a Supercross in Paris, we know we have the fans there. We don't have unlimited amount of fans. We have 30, 35,000. That's kind of like the number. And it's been like that for 30 years. So we know we have those fans, and they seem to be willing to invest in that event every year. I think we're going to do the same thing in Australia now, because, we with the whole team of Aus-X, we're going to relaunch Aus-X in a couple of weeks, So I think it's the same thing. There is, a captive audience, which is completely, in awe of the Lawrences. And I think we're going to be able to bring the Lawrences back to Australia. It's like bringing GMB back to France in 1992. It's the same story. It's going to be...
Fuck, I actually just got goosebumps about that.
It's exciting. And that is what we're trying to do. I think you have to be at the right place at the right time and do the right job, which is, and the WSX... as we knew it. I don't know about the new package, the new scenario. I'm not aware of it. I just, like you, I know about the 3 location, which are 3 location that are sketchy in audience. I mean, it's a reality. I was with Feld when we did Supercross in Vancouver. It just didn't work. I mean, in the Middle East, it's not like a super big motocross audience. I was in Qatar at the GP with 2,000 spectators. As much as I enjoyed it, I don't think it was a captive audience. And for Australia, I'll let you give me your opinion about doing a race in Perth. But I've been in Perth. It's pretty far away from everything in Australia. So I don't know. I mean, it's once again, you have to choose the right location.
We can't do a race like the Gypsy 500 or really anything dirt bike related without first making an online pit stop at motorsport.com. On our YZ250 project build, we went hard in the paint for everything from our Pro Circuit pipe and silencer to our boys and reeds and everything in between. The same goes when we're getting ready to take on a huge challenge like World Vets last year at Glen Helen, and the Gypsy 500 is no different. To prep for this insane event, we need to kit out our 4 Stark Vargs with moose tubes, hand guards, and some super soft grips, as well as our sag tool and more. To get your bike or body ready to race or ride in 2024, motorsport.com should be your first destination. They have the biggest range, the best deals, and no one has more reliable shipping or better customer service. Motorsport makes it possible for us to make our crazy ideas come to life, and they can make it happen for you too. Head to motorsport.com to kickstart your riding season. Yeah, and so WSX, I guess, came in like a bit of a wrecking ball, and I think that was the catalyst. And it's such a bummer because, like, Bailey's such a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Like, I've known him since I was, I want to say, like, 19.
Yeah.
Like, I go way back with him,
He's a great guy. I always
Unreal
believed
guy.
in him.
Yeah.
I was worried about the project, and him and I, we always were close, and I see me in him. I said, this is the guy that is as crazy as I was when I was his age, and he has the talent, and he's good, I was like, wow. I said, be careful. I kept telling him, be careful. Like when he telling me dates, he said, I'm going to that location. I say, been there, done that. It's not good, and he was listening, but he was not always wanting to believe me. It was a choice. Sometime and he was in a group of people that were not bad people, but they didn't have much experience. I witnessed Anaheim 2-3 years ago with that group of people, and they were watching Anaheim 2 thinking like, oh, we can do much better than that. I'm like, guys, just be humble. Yeah.
Well, I think Tony Cochran was the issue, really.
Yes. I mean, he was the ringleader for that.
Yeah. And the problem is, this is like just everyone can think about this, right?
Yeah.
Like, we'll just use Bailey as an example. 1-on-1 with nothing else around, is way different to like you give him your opinion and you give him your thoughts about why something can work. If it's one person and he gets to take that on advice, and then he gets to make the decision, a much different outcome to then you surround him with 7 people and they're all giving opinions and they're all explaining away why you're wrong about this. And then you can just start to like shape the things that you think and believe and just get a fully warped perspective on what's actually real.
And you and I, we've been in that situation.
It's so hard.
It's like, being around a table and something is not going to work, but then with everybody, you're like, oh, you may be right, and maybe it's, and we have to give chances. We have to work as a team, because it's, without the others, you don't succeed once again, you know.
But so fast forward, it obviously doesn't work out, but I believe that really was a catalyst. I believe it's funny. It's like a little bit of a bit of a moto controversy in a sense, or like a bit of a moto conspiracy. Like, Fell would have never done SMX if this didn't come along. Maybe. It's very hard to know for sure, but I definitely believe that they were talking about the COVID race safe and that brought them together.
Yeah.
But I also firmly believe that without WSX, we would have never got SMX. And,
I would agree with you.
and after speaking to so many people about it, like, they nailed it with SMX.
Yes.
And, like, I genuinely think I didn't know at the start. I didn't know how I felt about it, and I think it's going to evolve over time. But the reality of it is, and this is from a lot of conversations that I've had, is that there's 31 races that gives NBC a much more enticing package to buy as a sport that they can market throughout the year.
Yeah.
They injected millions of dollars into the programming of it, and the investment into shoulder programming, and like there's all these things that Supercross needed to jump into the future. Obviously, still a long way to go, but then the effect that it's had on motorsport, on motocross.
Yeah.
So like I've heard like 30% up in attendance just once SMX started, and just the processes that have been put in place, like everything got legitimized by WSX. And it's like, I fucking love Adam, and he's a great friend of mine. And he's out of the WSX now, and I'm willing to bet he lost a lot of money personally. And
I would agree with you once again. Yeah.
That would have been a very painful thing to go through. But I hope one day people will look at him and respect what he did for the sport. Like, in a very similar way to what you did with the US Open, like he was a catalyst for a change that happened that was for the greater good of this sport. And I think over time, hopefully he'll get the credit for that, even though it probably cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars.
No, it's the money that was burned, during those 2 years, we'd retire us forever, but it's, there was some talent there that finding, it just did, I think they went into a higher gear too quickly, and they just, I love that saying is speak softly and carry a big stick. And I think they did exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
And we've seen that a couple of times in the last few years. We've seen people just a little bit too aggressive at first, and they realize, but once you've put the bar there, it's difficult to tell people, you're gonna go there and it's a success. It's just a reality of life. So lesson to younger people, just be quieter sometime, just do your work, be successful, then get to the next step. It's difficult to just say you're gonna just go to the moon right away. Just take off.
Yeah. I love that. Speak softly and carry a big stick.
Yeah, that was Roosevelt that said that. I think, but American history is not my specialty, but I think it was Roosevelt.
So before, I want to talk about the Aus-X Open, but before we talk about that, what was behind the Ricky Carmichael crown thing at the US Open?
Oh God, that's that's not me. I was approached by exec from Feld at the time, say, we have this super good idea, we're gonna do that, and I kind of roll my eyes, and I'm like, guys, that doesn't sound good. Oh no, it's good, and it's one of those things where you say, okay, it's
how bad could it be?
Yeah, own it.
Yeah.
And I just it didn't make sense to me. It's like I've seen a couple of those situations where it's like, that's not gonna work, and that didn't work, I'm like, and Ricky he's a humble guy, he's not, he was just wanting to be the champion. He didn't want to step on McGrath and those guys, so that was just a mishap, faux pas, as we say in French.
Do you remember those opening ceremonies and the crowd reaction?
Oh yeah.
And what was it like to be in the stadium that night?
That was weird. It was like, at the US Open we had the beginning of a little bit of the wrestling side of it. People were coming with signs, and I'm like, wow, that's strange because we never seen that before. I remember when the first time I saw somebody, go Ricky and stuff like that was at the US Open. And that was not common to do that in Supercross before, and being close to the riders. So, and that was like, it felt like we were in a bad, wrestling competition. It's like there was a bad guy. It was Ricky Carmichael that day. I felt sorry for Ricky. I felt sorry for Jeremy. And that's everybody survived. Obviously, that's not the end of the world, but it was just a mishap.
And what was the crowd reaction?
Oh, the crowd reaction was, first, we are on the West Coast. Ricky is a Florida boy.
Yeah.
And the Feld Entertainment Group, at the time, Pace or whatever, the Supercross group was mostly East Coaster. They were based in Chicago, a little bit of Florida and stuff. So people don't always understand that America is not one country. There's a culture East, there's a culture West. And, being in Vegas, which is really more like a West Coast race, stepping on, the kids, the favorite kid was not a good idea. It's like, we've seen that before. It's kind of like when Ferrandi sticks out.
I was just thinking about that. I was just thinking about it.
It's just wrong, the same accident in different situation.
Different riders, completely zero reaction.
Just a crowd. If you had Ricky taking out Jeremy at Anaheim, he wouldn't need security to leave the building. If he does that in Daytona, he would be a hero. So, it's just, those situations where it's kind of like you laughing and saying, God, yeah, and it's internationally, I've dealt with plenty of security with riders like Sorby and Barsha. I'm like, oh, God, what were you thinking?
What's the worst situation that you've had with a rider?
Definitely, we had a takeout from Barsha at Paris Supercross like 10 years ago, when he took the French champion, like Aranda or Subira. But it took him out like Barsha knows how to do. He basically cut him in half. And I'm like, I'm with Barsha's mom. We are watching the race and we looked at each other, kind of like a WTF moment. And I'm calling security and everything. And it's like we had to really escort him, to find some back way in the stadium to get out. There was a crowd out. Honestly, they would have been hurting him. It was just crazy. Fans at the end of an evening, Saturday evening, everybody has been drinking a little bit too much. People were really violent. It's like, you suddenly you say, what am I doing here? It's like a team SEAL 6, whatever. You're protecting somebody.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
Because for people that have never been to Bercy, so I've never been to Bercy, but I guess I should just say like blanket term, like those European off-season races.
Yeah.
It's unreal. Like the year I went to Geneva, I want to say it was like, what year did Adam get hurt there? Was it 14 or 15?
15, yes.
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Blew my mind.
Yeah.
Could not believe there was fucking fire dancers and chicks in leather like lingerie, and just it was an absolute scene. And the crowd's like on the stand, and I'm like, holy fuck, this place is about to fall over. And that was the Geneva opening ceremony.
Yeah, and Geneva was different because it was more of a party.
Yeah.
Then Paris was the race.
Yep.
And Geneva was like, people were crazy, but really nobody cared who won and stuff like that. When you go to a Paris Supercross / Bercy, it was at the time, or still today, it was like French rider against the rest of the world. And when you have Justin, who I love very much, taking out, the French champion, you're like, oh my effing God, what are we going to do? So we had to secure the hotel, make sure security. It was like, wow, it was, today we're laughing about it. Sorby and LAC. Sorby waiting in a tunnel to take care of LAC in front of the cameras. We're watching the camera and we see Sorby waiting in the tunnel for LAC. And I'm like, oh God, it's those moments that make you, it's as long as nobody gets hurt, it's fun memories. The only issue we have in our sports is when people get hurt for stupid reason, and then it's kind of like a shame.
Yeah. So what's your actual position with the Bercy Supercross even nowadays?
I'm the US rep
liaison,
and and basically
is liaison a French word?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
What's it mean in French?
Liaison.
Yeah, but what's
connection?
Connection. Okay.
Just like it's.
I feel like French is just English with an accent. Yeah, just English with a French accent. When we went to Le Mans MotoGP, and we had media credentials and shit, and I'm like going to the guy, and I'm like, I need to get my media credential. And he's just like, oh, no English, and I'm like, media credential, and the guy's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, you motherfucker. I literally just said the same thing, but I made it sound French. Like, you fucking knew what I was saying.
Yeah, that's the French are pretty good at hiding the fact that they don't want to speak English, even if they speak English, So it's like
I'm like, bro, it's the same shit.
Yeah,
it's the same word.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it's crazy what It's so many stories. Like Carmichael. Carmichael came. His first trip outside of US was Oakley sent him to Paris as a guest. He was like 15 years old, and good old Ricky, 15 years old in Paris, and that was like, and I liked him right away because he's a good kid. He was a good kid, and we took him, clubbing and stuff like that. That was like he couldn't believe his eyes. I think it was like his life was never the same.
Oh, dude, I could see that in some of the Americans that were at Geneva for the first time. Yeah. And like, man, that was the worst hangover I've ever had in my life. I was completely fucked.
Yeah, I did 30 of those, and I think there was about 20 bad one.
Oh man, yeah. I remember being in so Roger Larson.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was sharing a hotel with him.
Yeah.
So we went. There was like a big monster scaffolding in the car park, and it was just a fucking rave was in this car park around like the monster tower.
Yeah.
And then we ended up going back to the hotel, and we ended up in like a hotel room till like all hours. And then my flight was pretty early, and I just got to the hotel at 5 in the morning, and I'm throwing up in the shower completely naked, and Roger's just like, bro, we need to fucking go. And I'm like, dude, you have to pack all my shit. Like I can't do it.
Yeah.
And so we end up. I can't. I feel like the airport was pretty close.
Oh yeah.
It was like
it couldn't be any closer. Just across the freeway.
It was,
like maybe a half a mile.
Yeah,
you could walk to the airport.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure we walked. From memory, I think we walked, and I ended up getting in the airport, and I saw the dude with the machine gun, and I was like, I'm just gonna do some fucking crazy shit so I can get like shot with an airsoft so that they give me some pain. Like I need the ambulance to come. Yeah. I was so fucking ruined from that. That would have been every single year.
It's different now. I mean, the last 10 years have changed a lot.
Really? So it's not like that anymore?
No, I mean, first, Geneva is dead thanks to COVID. I mean, I've been working a lot trying to revive it. I mean, this year I actually went to Switzerland to kind of like reignite all the pilots. Yeah. I mean, I've seen some genuine interest, but once again, it's like the price. I mean, when you were grandfathered, everything was great. Once things stop and you want to go back, people look at you like, hey, you have to pay the 2024 price, not the 1990 price with a 3% raise every year. And it's just insane. I mean, to rent a stadium today, it's like, it's just like Vegas. Look where we're going back. We're going back to the Speedway. We're not going back to a stadium,
Because we can't rent it.
I honestly don't think it's possible to rent an Allegiant Stadium for a Supercross.
Oh, Allegiant.
Yeah.
How much would that cost?
Millions.
Really? For one night?
Yes. Plus the cost of dirt. I mean, and all the regulation, and people don't understand all that stuff. Right now I'm working for Red Bull. We're doing a a straight rhythm enduro in Nashville. But, I mean, the battle with the city, it's like people don't understand that just a small pit, just to put 16 riders to do a straight rhythm, I mean, you have to rent a parking lot for one day. That costs $50,000, and because in Nashville, they can rent a spot for $30, $40 an hour every day, so you're looking at 50 stalls and for 24 hours and you get the bill, and it's like, it's insane, and it's, kudos to Red Bull to help to do those things, because there's no single promoter that would take a chance like that, like the straight rhythm we did for 10 years with Jeremy. It's like, it was only good for the sport. Of course, it's good for the brand that is financing it, but it doesn't make sense,
Yeah, there really isn't the return that people would think that there is on an event like that.
And it's, I've been called all over the last 10, 20 years, I've got super cool people calling me from all over the world telling me, I want to do a supercross on Mars. And I'm like, do you realize how much it's going to cost you? Are you ready? My first job is to talk them out of it, not to convince them to do it, because it's rich guys are not happy, even when they lose money, and it's like there's no rich guy that's happy to lose money, a very short time maybe, but not very long. So I try to
rich people don't get rich by losing money.
Exactly. And I say, hey, you realize that biggest chance is to break even. It's not even to make money at that stage, it's like, and they're like, oh, okay, I've talked out a lot of people from doing events because I made them realize that it's just not going to work. Now, if you want to do it and you want to burn $1 million of your own money and be happy, I'm your guy. But you have to realize it's not guaranteed that you're going to do that,
Yeah. And so, all right, we go to the Aus-X.
Yeah.
So why can an event like that be so successful?
So the Aus-X team called me about 10, 12 years ago, and they said, hey, you are one of the pillar of the Paris Supercross. You created the US Open. This is basically what we want to do. We want to combo US Open, Paris Supercross in Australia, because we feel like Australia could be it. And I'm like, I agree with you. I think you totally have an audience to do something of that caliber. So, we met, I met them in Paris in 2014 or something. They came to the race. We studied everything, kind of like what would be good, what would be not as good. And next thing I knew is I flew to Australia, checked the venue. We talked about how to expand the track, going outside, the riders we would invite. And it was honestly one of the best working experience in my life, because a very young group of people led by Adam Bailey, great people. Everybody was super good. Short of the financial side, which at the highest level, I didn't think we could fail, because right audience, right place, Sydney, right people to sell, right riders, and it was a hit. I felt like we had created the Paris Supercross, the Bercy of Paris Supercross. Then, they did 2 years, and I told them, I said, guys, you don't need me. It's just like, what you're doing, so keep going. So that was, the end, and we kept a super good relationship because they're good people. And then, they moved to Melbourne, to that Marvel Stadium, and they were successful there. And then COVID happened, and then WSX, they chose a different direction. Could have worked, but didn't. And now we're gonna relaunch the Aus-X. It's gonna be last weekend of November.
Yep. So November 29. Yes. Melbourne Marvel Stadium.
Exactly. And we're gonna get the best riders in the world there. We're gonna have the Lawrences and more. And I don't think it can fail, because there all the stars are lined up. You have the best location in one of the best country for Supercross. The best riders, which happen to be Australian, by the way, in case you didn't notice.
They are. I did notice.
Yeah. So, we can just bring all the Vegemite you can, because it's gonna be a fest, And no, it's like there are times where things should not fail. there's always a risk. It's like, you don't control everything in life, but the potential of success is absolutely tremendously high. And super excited to be there. Hopefully, you'll be there too.
I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
I'm not missing that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited.
Yeah.
Like the fact that Australians are going to get to see the Lawrence brothers do their thing on a full-size Supercross track. So I have other inside information that's yet to be confirmed, but apparently Cooper Webb
Yes, I heard too.
might be coming. I don't
Yes,
think it's fully done.
Yes.
But I mean, a really, really high level of domestic riders in Australia, especially when they're in Australia.
Yeah.
When you don't have all of the pressures of being overseas and not on your
same
bike.
Same as what we experience in France.
Yeah.
It's like the French champion could squeeze on the podium when, if he comes to Anaheim, he's not making the main.
Yeah.
It's like that's a power of your home turf.
Yeah. So we just everything's lined up, and I think it's such a when I found out the boys were going over there, I was so happy because it's such an important time in their career.
Absolutely.
And
it needed to be done, because they left Australia to go to
So
Europe
young.
and coming back. Yeah, it's a full circle, and they need to be recognized in Australia for what they've done, and they're great people to start with. So I'm super excited about it.
I'm excited for the press. Like that's one thing that the Aus-X team do so well is like the press run that happens before it, because Australia just doesn't know about the Lawrence brothers in the way. And I've given Myrtle shit about it, but I guess there's a lot of like, not politics, but it's like you got to focus on what you got to focus on here first, But I'm excited that the Australian general public, not the Australian motocross fan, is going to get exposed to the Lawrence brothers in a way that they haven't yet.
Yeah.
Because name brothers right now, just across the world.
No.
They're 1 and 2 in the world right now in motocross.
Yeah. No.
They're the guys.
Yeah.
And to have 2 brothers from Australia that are just dominating. And Jet might be one of the most dominant athletes in sport at the moment.
Which is great for the sport.
Yeah.
It's and great for him.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny.
Dominant riders are always a question: is it good or not? And I think it's a 50-50. Like when I remember when Jeremy was ready to get his perfect season, 93, 94. It was like people were like super pumped about it. And when a nice guy is dominating like Jet is, I think it's more on a side of good than bad. But at the same time, I've seen in my career where the dominating rider is so much faster than the other that people are like wondering why they
what's wrong with everyone else. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I remember, first time we took James Stewart to Paris, he came and he was like 5 seconds faster than anybody, and everybody was looking at me like, what are we doing here? And this guy's like he could be.
He's not human.
Yeah, he could be in a locker room, miss the start, and still win the race. But we have to enjoy those moments.
Yeah.
We have to enjoy those moments. And after Anaheim 1, I felt like Jet would be like win 10 races out of 16. And that didn't turn out to be so easy.
Close.
Yeah.
8. What do you win? 8?
Yeah.
7. I've thought about that a bit as well. And the thing that I go towards is that the time that Supercross grew the most was when Jeremy was as dominant as he was.
Yeah.
And I think that we've just seen such periods of dominance with riders that there is something to that, But I just wonder if Jet was American, how much better it would be for the sport. Because there is that, like Jeremy was American.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, I wonder how much that
even
plays
better
into
Californian.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is kind of like the essence of the sport, or was, because today it's questionable. Supercross I mean, motocross, supercross is kind of like has been, sent to Florida for most of it, but it doesn't translate in spectators,
Yeah. And I think the core of the sport still is here.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the riders might be there.
Yeah.
But I think, all of the race teams
Yes.
and, everything is still here. A lot of the brands are here. A lot of the industry
Correct.
is,
Yes.
in Southern California.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that through periods of dominance and dominant champions is when the sport can grow, because I think it just piques people's interest in a way of just how somebody could be so much better.
Yeah. Repetition is always good. If you have a champion,
Yeah.
different champion every year, for the average motorcycle fan, is like, who's the champion? Is it Villopoto, Carmichael, or
Yeah, who's the best?
Yeah, who's the best? When you have the guy repeating, like Jeremy McGrath was absolutely a solid 10 years. It was like he was the boss of Supercross for 10 years, or maybe 8. But give or take. It's just it's very interesting what's going on right now, and the fact that they are Australians. Yes, I mean, I would say it's definitely the country of choice if you're not American.
Yeah.
in American motocross, French is a little bit more challenging, but I mean, German seems to be doing well as well. I mean, Kenny has been, I think, the most Americanized.
Yeah.
Non-American athlete, in America. I think most of the fans don't even think he's German.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true. Kenny is probably one of the would be like the most embraced foreign athlete ever, really.
Yeah.
In the sport.
Yeah.
American kids, American wife.
Yeah.
Never really left, eh?
Yeah. No, I can relate to that.
Yeah, right.
That helps. That helps a lot. I mean,
So what's your role with the Aus-X now?
I'm a strategic advisor, sports organizer for those guys, and it's since Adam cannot be fully involved, in this project, I think it's important for me to be there and give them, share with them what needs to be done, and maybe cool down the temperature a little bit, because that's what you have to do as being the older guy. Sometimes just cool down.
Yeah. How important are off-season races for the sport, do you think?
It is, but we need good one. We need good one. It's where I do believe the Aus-X has the ability to be the Paris Supercross of Australia.
Yeah.
And that is really what's going to happen, because, made a deal with the Lawrences for Paris for 3 years, made a deal with Australia for several years as well. So, I think the Lawrences and international racing are going well together. They have an open mind. They would like to travel, and that's different, because we had generation of riders that didn't want to travel, and it's for the international fan, it was kind of sad. We had guys, like RV, Dungy, they were not really eager to go and do races outside of America, short of stints at Motocross of Nations that didn't work always well. That's having the best guys in the world just, willing to go. I think it's a blessing for international racing and for global fans, because suddenly we can see the best guys.
And so with the WSX disaster and everything that happened, do you think we'll ever get a world championship for Supercross? Or do you think that the AMA is just so embedded and has too much of a hold on the sport?
I think AMA has no influence on what Feld wants to do.
Sorry, I meant the series. Not. I just say the AMA is not the actual AMA.
Yes. No, I think at some point, which is Feld could wake up and say, we could have a SMX international, and at some point, why not having an SMX with Paris and Melbourne? That would require a lot of business dealing, of course, but I think that would be the right direction. just having maybe one race in US, one in Australia, and one in Paris, in France. That would be a dream. I would work for 10 more years to see that, and be helping, because that is what we need, at the end of the American season, a short US tour. In 2020, I was at the MXGP in Matterley Basin. We had a big meeting with Monster, and Monster was ready to bankroll a international Triple Crown, which would have been Paris, Geneva, and Melbourne. And you know what happened? COVID happened, and then it was completely off base. Everybody, Geneva disappeared. Melbourne, the Aus-X disappeared. We were left with Paris, and it was just like we were that close. I left the MXGP. I remember, in a plane writing the recap how we're gonna do it, and it was dead. Dead on arrival. Yeah.
I never knew that was like a thing that was in place.
Yes. Yeah, that was Monster was really supportive of this concept.
How? I don't think it can be stated how important Red Bull and Monster have been for the sport.
Oh, God, it's like you couldn't do without them, and they're very active. It's not only sponsorship; it's activation. People don't realize how much money is spent behind the scene.
Explain activation. Like, how would you explain that to someone that didn't understand that term?
Everything that happened at a race, I'm just going to take a Supercross, when we are at Anaheim and we have a BMX demo, we have a freestyle demo, everything is paid by Monster. So it's like...
They're paying the athletes to be there.
They're paying everything. They're paying their riders to be doing the championship. They're paying the title sponsorship to be Supercross, Monster Supercross. And then on top of it, they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars activating the pits for the fan, and they pay, Taka, Twitch, all those guys to be here. It's just, if those guys were to go away, that would be a big empty space, because they are really the support of our sport in many ways,
How much do you reckon Monster would tip in a year to Supercross?
How much money they spend? Between what they give the riders, what they give the teams, what they give Feld, activation, $20 million,
A year.
A year, yeah. And I can't be that far off.
Yeah, that's.
It's between 10 and 20. Without it couldn't be less than 10 to $20 million a year. So guys, keep on drinking.
Yeah, it's a staggering investment. Yeah. It's such a huge investment to make.
Yes, and with Red Bull, the straight rhythm was costing millions as well, and it was such a good experience. And I understand at some point they want to do, Red Bull is very creative. They want to be finding new ideas and stuff, and we're working on it. We're trying to find new ideas.
How do you think the relationship between Monster and Red Bull is? Like, do they coexist in the space in the way that they should?
It went from unbelievably bad, to, because I had the opportunity.
You do both.
Yeah, I did work. I was a Monster guy, mostly 100% until Monster changed direction, and I ended up having no support for Monster. And then, Jeremy kind of like heard that and put me
He was like, finally.
Yeah, it's like, okay, come on my side. And that's what happened. It was kind of organic, and at that point it was like, we can all work together, and then really, 10 years ago, Monster guy and Red Bull guys, they were on both sides of the street, and nobody was looking at across the street. And today, we all sit at the same table, talk about stuff, and we're willing to do things like it's never been done before. Like 15 years ago, 15 years ago, I was with Davey at a GP, and I with Giuseppe Longo, and I said, we need to do a motocross national, like a MXGP national, which would be the top 20.
Dude.
Yes.
Give it to me.
Yes. I put that on the table, and I said, hey, we need to do an MXGP national. This is And the problem was at the time it was Red Bull and Monster. And at the time Bruce Sternstrom was the leader of Monster for motorsport. And I went to see him and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? And he said, yes, that would be, I would basically let it happen because it would be so good for the sport. And the Red Bull European guys were not as flexible, so that kind of died. And I still pray to God it could happen one time. This project is like, this is the best motocross project. Let's cross the two championship once, just for once and for all, to have all the best on the same gate, and that's, maybe it will happen one day,
Well, I mean, it's Monster and Monster now.
Yeah, now there's no political issues. Now it's Monster all over. So that, you still have a little bit of crisis maybe, but, the mentality is so different. Like, like Fox is involved, in MXGP, that's what I do on the side. and they're not involved in US. So you bring Fox in that, Fox would be in that race. But, let's get along, guys. It's like...
I fucking hate that shit.
Yeah, for the good of the sport, because it's really, we cannot, we are a very, very small bubble. And in that bubble, there's a lot of people that think they're even a smaller bubble. Like, we can put a Fox head next to an Alpine Star and a TLD and a Thor, and nobody's gonna die.
No.
Just be real. But egos sometimes, and but it's getting better. It's getting better. Like now, there's less and less exclusive. We don't want to protect our territory as much. Like, for my involvement with Fox, I always say, hey, let's welcome everybody, because it's good to be all at the table,
Yeah.
We had 20 years of purely Parts Unlimited sponsorship. That was 20 years of closeness. I'm telling you, if Fox and Troy Lee and everybody would have been there at the same time, that would have been helping the sport.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's
one
reality.
Thing, it's one thing that always drove me crazy. Especially, like, you remember when GoPro was the sponsor of the Supercross. No one could run a different helmet cam.
Yeah.
How fucking annoying is that?
Yeah.
Like, you've got a company, like, it was Peter Adderton at the time, 360 Fly. And you've got a company that's willing to, like, invest, whether or not you think he's a great businessman, whatever. But it's like, there's a company that's willing to pay a rider, and, there's a product there. There should be some level of agency and freedom that riders and teams are given. Like, the OnlyFans thing is kind of I mean, I'm a little bit torn there. I feel like there's probably a line where you could draw in terms of, like, okay, it's associated with this, we don't necessarily want to be. There's an argument that you can make for that, but fucking Fox and Thor, like, you've got these two companies that want to bring money in, or like Red Bull having some form of activation. Like, it's just put such a cap on the growth of the sport. And the problem is that Feld made them, like, Feld made the money. So they were just like, well, we're getting the GoPro money, so if someone else doesn't get their money, not really a big deal. But that's just such a short-sighted approach that ultimately hurts the people that are in your show.
Yeah, the mentality was, pay me and I'll keep all your competition away. It's kind of like a private security mentality. It's not a business mentality. And, it's getting better. I think we'll see that kind of things happening in the future, because in Europe, Giuseppe Longo just broke that. Say, screw it. We'll have everybody there. There is one exclusive. It's a title sponsor.
Yeah,
that's it. After that, everybody is welcome. And I agree. Title sponsor. It's like you can't put Monster and Red Bull on the same banner.
Yeah. But there should be flexibility for Red Bull to do some projects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, a great example of this is Red Bull Motorspy.
Yeah.
and at Monster Energy Supercross. So that is an example where there was something
exactly, because we have the chance
allowed.
to have progressive people like Jeremy, and it's hey, that's the way it goes. But you go 10 years back and you put somebody that's less progressive, and it doesn't happen. So once again, people are the key.
So going back to this MXGP national idea, where would you do it?
It would have to be at the end of the season. Not to offend, anybody, because, it would have to be August, September, because at that point, the world champion is in the top 20. It's there's no question. So I would say I would look at what the championship does. It could be in Indiana, make it mid-August in Indiana and have the 20 Europeans, the 20 guys that are 20 to 40 years. You kindly ask them to stay home or come and watch the race. And you
can't say that. Privateers are the backbone of this sport,
Just
bro.
one race.
Hey, you cannot say, how dare you?
Let's not get there.
I won't make you go there.
No, it's okay. We can go there, but at some point we have to bring all the best of the world in America to race.
So you would like it to be in America?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Why America? Why not somewhere in Europe?
Yeah, because I think the European are used to travel. The American are not. The European, as we speak, they are packing up their bike to go to freaking Indonesia. Yeah. So,
which they're all stoked about.
Yes. That's, we all know.
Yeah.
And that's really the difference. It's like a Euro is like, hey, going to America would be a vacation for them.
Yeah. And they all want to ride the tracks.
Exactly.
They all want
they would know they are suddenly Yamaha guys is at Star Racing and stuff like,
Fuck, that would be a cool couple of weeks.
That would be unbelievable for the sport. I think for motocross, that would be kind of like the Masters of, that would be the event that everybody is dreaming about. But, I've said it, that thing, it was in 2011, I traveled with Davey to Valkenswaard to meet with Giuseppe Longo, and that was kind of a general conversation. But since then, we had so many ups and downs, and now they all love each other. But, it's a good thing to love somebody. You have to do something too. It's like, friendship and love is one thing. Let's do something together. Let's elevate the sport in a way that's going to get people excited. And now, of course, you always have the concept like who's going to share, who's going to make the money, how it's going to be shared. That's a business. Let's get people with cigars, get in the room and make it happen,
Yeah, dude, I've never thought about it in that. Like, that does seem like a very easy solution. Like, not easy, obviously, but like that's a really great concept to bring the best riders in the world together for one day. Yeah,
and it would be like a motocross of nation without the team aspect.
Yeah.
So instead of, like Australia, struggling sometime to find 3 good guys, unlike France that we have dozens of guys.
Yeah.
It's like, the teams work for France.
Yeah.
It's difficult sometimes for other countries. Look at Germany. It's a tough situation. You have Kenny and not so many people at the level of Kenny, So there would be like, there's no question. It's like top 20, put your bike in a crate as you do 5 times a year. And here you go to Indiana or, Butts Creek or whatever,
Glen Helen?
Why not? Why not? Is
that the move?
Yeah.
Glen Helen?
I don't know, this Glen Helen situation versus Fox Raceway, It's a tough one for me.
That actually is that actually is a problem that I didn't really fully understand because when it comes to this whole like Glen Helen getting a national back. Yeah, Parla kind of throws a spanner in the works.
Fox Raceway, sorry.
Please.
Respect my sponsor, my partner.
I have so many friends that work at Fox, eh? I
Yes.
just didn't even realize how many of you fuckers there are.
Well, there is a good team at Fox. You know?
There
Yeah.
is. Like,
Yes.
when I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, oh my God, there's a lot of great people that work at Fox.
Yes, and even more, I've been working at Fox. I mean, it's kind
over
of like
the years, the
over
people
the
that
years,
pass through,
And Greg Fox called me like maybe 25 years ago, or 20 years ago, and said, "Hey, what do you think? We sponsor the Motocross of Nation," and it was at a time where it was really lame. I mean, it was not, and I was like, "Yeah," and he told me the figures, and I'm like, "Man, it's a fire sale. Do it."
That's a good deal.
Yeah, that's a good deal. And then it's been, and then, after the US Open, we were kind of family with the Fox family, and did a lot of work with them. They hired me full time as a global consultant like 17 years ago. So it's been a super interesting, a lot of things behind the scene, from helping getting the HRC to Fox about 12 years ago, Nestan deal, which it was run by Austin and those guys.
Yeah.
And lately we have a Spanish kid that's gonna look good in Fox next year. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Maybe on a green bike.
Yeah, maybe on a green bike.
When's
Yes.
that come out?
It's all gonna be at the end of the year.
So it'll get so they'll release that at the end of the year, you think?
Yeah, I mean it's contracts. It's it's
Fuck, that's a great signing.
yeah. I think it was not easy, but it was the right thing to do at the right time. It's like there's a lot of potential there. Yeah.
Oh man, how much do you want to talk about that? Like, are we already saying too much?
No, yeah, I think I did. I'd say too much.
Oh, I get you in too much trouble. Yeah, because there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. Edgar Toronteras.
There
his
he
name.
is. Yeah. So the Fox Raceway thing, when there was 2 Fox Raceways,
Yes,
the Glen Helen thing would have been much more appealing.
absolutely.
But now
Yeah.
there's actually a problem because the SMX, they clipped a national.
Yeah.
Parla being 2, obviously Fox Raceway being the second was the one that got clipped.
And all the nationals are super strong. There is no weak link. I think the weak link have been clipped.
Yeah.
Already. So, there's not nationals that are not worthy of being a national. In my opinion, I think they're all super good.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. But when I was having the whole conversation with Davey around the national going back to Glen Helen, I didn't realize, or I didn't think at the time, that would essentially mean that Fox Raceway would go. And there's a lot of people that enjoy Fox. There's a lot of people that don't.
Yeah, I mean,
but the reality is like they run a really great national, and they play ball. They've been working for a long time.
Absolutely.
And it's like, well, hey, you guys don't want to be a part of it. You guys shit the bed. We've created something good over here. Fucking peace. We're doing it.
There's no question that Glen Helen is a bigger natural track than Fox Raceway. There's no question about it. But it's not only the venue. Sometimes you have to have you need to have the stars lining up, and that's for some reason they haven't been lining up. So
yeah. But man, wouldn't that be a cool place to have the MXGP National?
Yeah.
Somewhere like that.
Yeah.
Just somewhere crazy, iconic.
Yeah.
They've had GPs and nationals been part of, both on
Maybe
the circuit.
that's the last race at the end of August.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would work, but it's
there's a lot.
There's more politics here than ever.
Yeah.
Let's keep it in Indiana.
Yeah. So, what keeps you going through all of this? You just still love it, just as much as ever.
I still love it, and I'm an avid rider, and fortunately, I've been lucky to be able to ride, and every time I ride motocross or enduro, whatever I can, or even mountain bike, it's kind of like a fountain of youth, and kind of like pumps me up to keep going. It's like I just come from Moab, where I've got a house, and I've been riding 3 days of unbelievable riding, and that pumped me up. It's like it resets. I know why I'm in motorcycle. Dirt biking is
Yeah.
my life, and it's not a spectator sport for me. It's like I know why I'm drooling about dirt bikes, the sport in general. Every day it's like I want to ride. When you're 20 years old and you're riding, you have all your life in front of you. At my age, I want to ride 100 times a year, and it's what I'm doing usually. I try to put 100 times of riding a year, because it's it's just what keeps me going. And with a different twist, like I got very involved in the electric field,
Yeah.
and that's fun to ride. It's like I if I'm in Utah at my house, I'm gonna ride one day on a 2-stroke, one day on a 4-stroke, and one day on electric. And at the end, I'm like, okay, let's go back to the electric, and then go back to the 2-stroke, and it's just so much fun, because every segment, 2-stroke, 4-stroke, electric, has something
Yeah.
that gets you excited. And I know you're one of them, because we've been together at places where we kind of do that. And yeah, it's just like a different diet. There's not one diet. You can do different things.
Yeah.
So that's really my personal fountain of youth, is the ability to still ride at a decent level and experience what I'm trying to make better for the riders. It's in Europe, I grew up riding enduros because that was kind of like the easier way. You were getting out of your garage. Bikes have a plate, like in Australia. You're riding through the suburbs, and suddenly you're in the woods and you ride. Motocross was a little bit more complicated. You needed to have a truck or a trailer take your bike to motocross, but I still did it both. And yeah, I've got a soft spot for enduro, and I feel really good about what I've accomplished, about how I've been able to help the enduro world with enduro cross, and everything that's been done around that. But it's just a page of the book.
Yeah. And so you touched on the electric.
Yeah.
What as someone that's been very involved on the back end
Yeah.
of electric, what do you think the future is for electric? What do you think the future is for racing? How should it be implemented? Do you agree in them not being allowed to race currently? Like, where are you at on it?
I've been going full circle. So for the record, I organized the first electric motocross at the Orleans during Mini Moto in 2008, which, we had Emig, Tortelli, and plenty of good riders. And, Zero was the first brand of electric bikes. We lined up with Zero bikes. It was awesome. It was a really super good experience, but definitely too early. Nothing. People were not reacting positively. It was cute. I would say it's the right word to use, and I don't like that word, but it was cute. And then I joined Alta when they came in, and I was quite instrumental in the Josh Hill story, straight rhythm. And, then we went to Erzberg with Ty Tremaine, which was fantastic experience. Sadly, the company went belly up after. Shortly after, I was called by Stark, and I was one of the first person to join the group. We up to the bike launch, and there was a lot of willingness to push the electric in the gas field, and I was okay with that. I was okay with that. I just looked at the big picture. It sounded like a super good idea. I was the first one to realize that it's not going to happen. I'm not saying I'm happy about it, but you have to realize when things are not going to happen shortly. And it's one of the reasons I left that group almost 2 years ago, because I said, it's just not going to happen. We have to find different ways to expose the quality of an electric bike. It's not going to be through Supercross or MXGP, because I don't think our world is going to let it happen because of what happened in MotoGP, what happened in Formula One. Right away, those sports decided it's going to be a different class. For the right or the wrong reason, that's the way it happened. And today we are in a little bit of a culture war about electric being allowed in racing or not. And I think it's detrimental to the entire sport because we should embrace it. We should let, bikes, ride together to a point. Not necessarily open the door fully in Supercross. We have manufacturers that have been investing millions over the years, to perfect a 450 motocross bike. And of course, they're protective. We talked about that, a while ago. I mean, they want to protect their territory. They're not ready yet. KTM is building fantastic gas bike. They don't have an electric bike today, so why would they want an electric bike? That is understandable. But we need electric bike to help us break some noise situation.
Yes.
We need electric bike to have a track, in Costa Mesa, in Irvine. That's what I've been telling whoever wants to listen. Let's show electric bike brings something to the picture. We not beat a gas bike, but do things that the gas bike cannot do. You'll never have a motocross track in SoCal, close to the ocean, because of the noise. It's simply not possible. It will never happen. I raced Saddleback.
Yeah.
It was 10 minutes away from here. And that's not going to happen anymore,
Yeah.
So I would bring electric bike more in that aspect because, the bike, the Stark is exceptional. For riders like us, the regular weekend warrior, it's a great bike. It's maybe the best bike.
It's the bike.
Yeah, it's maybe the bike short of the range. It's a limited still.
But in terms of, I actually just had this conversation with a friend of mine, Kyle. He's sponsored the show forever, and he pre-ordered a Stark like pre-orders ago, and then he finally gets it, and then so it's a funny story. He was like trying to buy this house, and he's like, "Fuck, I'm gonna have to sell it because I've got to come up with all this money real quick to buy this house."
Yeah.
And I was devastated. He didn't even get to ride it. And I was so devastated for him.
Yeah.
Anyway, it worked out. He made it happen, bought the house, kept the bike. And I spoke to him just the other day and he's like, holy fuck, bro.
Yeah.
They're like the best thing in the world.
No, it is.
He doesn't ride much. His kids ride. His kids have electric bikes.
Yeah.
And he's a good rider, but he's not out there riding twice a week, keeping up the fitness, keeping up the skill.
Yeah.
And so now that guy can just go and enjoy riding a motorcycle with his family. He's got this acreage that he lives on. His kids can fucking fantastic.
Exactly.
Best bike he could ever own.
Absolutely.
Is it the only bike? Is that the only thing that riders should own? No, 100% not. But in a specific application and a specific way for a specific guy, they're the best bike, and we should be embracing that for the larger culture of motorcycling.
And I think the direction of trying to prove it's a competition bike is not the right message. The right message is, it's people like from your generation to my generation. It's like we just want a bike that's easy to ride, zero maintenance. It's zero maintenance.
It's ridiculous.
Yes, it's like, I plug my bike when I come back and next day I just unplug it and go riding. Yeah. It's just like, and I'm looking at my air filters because, I've got 2-stroke, 4-stroke and electric. And, it's just the sheer lust to have a 2-stroke or 4-stroke, which is, it's a big, big part of riding. It's lustful.
Yeah.
That bike that sounds really sexy and vibrate and everything.
Got the feeling.
And it's like when I jump on my Stark and do a couple laps at my track, it's less the ceremonial of getting on a bike is kind of like dull. You go there and you turn a switch. You push the switch and you ride. The pleasure of starting your 450 and just revving up and everything, that's something that talked to us and still does. But we don't understand how much it doesn't talk to other people, I've got my own motocross track in Florida and I bought it to be away from civilization, because the noise was the number one factor. So I ended up buying a piece of land that is close to a runway, airport runway, just to be putting myself away from noise issue because, nobody likes motorcycle noise. It's what people have to realize. So embrace that, electric motorcycle makers. Let's go and build tracks where nobody can ride. We should have a track downtown, LA. you know, or downtown Barcelona or Paris. And, you know, people would ride electric bikes. You know, you just have to take care of the dust. That's the next issue, but that's an easy fix.
That's easier than noise. Yeah. And so how should they be integrated into racing? Should they be given wildcards at events to where, because I think the manufacturers care about championships.
Yeah.
So they don't want
my first idea was that, you know, my first idea.
Like they can do 4 races a year.
Just
or
like last race, you know, my first idea when I talked to whoever was like, hey, let Josh Hill do the final on an electric bike, because he's today the fastest rider in the world on an electric bike. I mean, Josh Hill is the fastest human on an electric bike. And, you know, he's a legit top 20 guys. So give a chance to guys like that. Maybe give a chance to the manufacturers to do 1 race a year on an electric bike. Have Trey Kennard line up at one national on the Honda. Just, you know, it would be, I don't think it could hurt anything or anybody. But, you know, that was kind of like, no, it's...
they just don't even want to crack the door a little bit.
And you know, the sadly, the aggressiveness that we've seen with some manufacturers got, you know, I mean, you know, it's just, you have to be careful who you're poking, you know, at some point, you know. And when we did the straight rhythm with Josh Hill, you know, I mean, Jeremy Malott and I, we didn't want to poke anybody. We just wanted to create something fun for the sport. And that worked very well. You know, the following years I got in Geneva, Josh Hill against Carmichael, you know, doing a duel, you know, I mean, couple laps. And one time Ricky won, one time Josh Hill won. That was unbelievable. It was among the best minutes of racing I ever, you know, was, because people were amazed. It was like the GOAT on a gas bike and Josh Hill on an electric bike. It was amazing. That's the kind of things we need to do. Now, I think if it was today, I would not be allowed to do that. Yeah, there would be some people, no, we can't do that. It's just not proper. And it's sad because, you know, we need to think, once again, you know, you can't talk about electric bike until you've rode one. That's if you don't ride a Stark, or if you don't drive a Tesla once in your life, please do not open your mouth. You have no idea what you're missing. You know, once you do that, realize that there's a space, there's things that an electric vehicle is going to do like no other gas vehicle. And, you know, I'm a little bit down on it because I've seen so much beating on it, but, you know, that's what it takes to be you know, have a vision and be a pioneer. You have to take the beating. Yeah.
I've had that exact conversation with Anton.
Yeah.
And I've just said, look, man, you just did too good.
Yeah.
Like you nailed it. You knocked it out of the park. And as a result, everyone is now scared.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, just prove the point where you can prove it, you know, instead of going after things that, you know, that are difficult to get. It will happen. It's going to be, but, you know, we have a setback. So
yeah,
we'll make it work.
Well, mate, 3 hours goes pretty quick with you.
Wow.
Already.
Are you kidding?
No, already.
Oh my God. Yes.
Crazy. This has been great. I'm so glad we
haven't scratched the surface yet.
I know. Well, this doesn't have to be the last time.
Absolutely.
We're definitely going to have to do it again.
Let's be in Australia. Let's do it in Australia.
So what's next for you the next few months?
I'm on my way to X Games right now. So it's just a sports organizer for X Games for many, many years. And I'm going to be having fun with your fellow Australian mates. You know? I mean, it's like, you know, freestyle is Australian.
It's crazy,
dude. It's almost embarrassing for the other countries.
It's so wild. I don't know what the deal is.
Yes.
I probably haven't put enough thought into it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Australians have just produced, I mean, other than like Travis and Deegan, you know, but like in recent years, you got Rob Adelberg, Josh Sheehan, Harry Bink, Jacko Strong.
They're all such cool guys. I mean, as far as being with a group of people, I'm really looking forward to the week because they're just good guys, you know. And I'm not saying that, but the fact that freestyle is a much smaller field, and the level of intensity is unlike any other sports I know. It's really a demanding sport, and they're such good people. I mean, I'm looking forward to it, and just doing everything I can to keep it fun and safe for everybody.
Well, I'm going to be there.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, I'm coming out all 3 days, so I'm
Yes.
I'm actually going to stay with Morgan.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's out there. One thing that Stark can compete in is X Games.
Yes.
Shit's about to get weird.
Yeah.
Dude, Colby Raha on
Yes.
a Stark in fucking quarter pipe is going to be
Yes.
scary.
Yes, absolutely.
And then Pat Evans with his whips.
Yes. And trust me, it's not been easy.
Is it been a problem?
I mean, I put electric bikes in the books 10 years ago when Nate Adams came with, and it's been in the book for 10 years. So, I mean, I put electric bike in Enduro cross books. I put electric bikes in, but just, hey, let's be open-minded, I mean, and, as I told a couple athletes, I said, you know what? If you think it's so good, just go and buy one.
Yeah.
Because none of you guys are sponsored by Gas Bike. You buy your own bikes.
Yeah.
I mean, freestylers are not factory riders. I mean, short of couple exceptions. So if you think it's so superior, just go and buy one.
Yeah. I'll probably give you one.
Yeah.
So yeah, X Games. Then where do you go from there? You got TKO. At the end of
X
the year?
Games. Then I'm gonna go back to Utah to ride a week. I'll need that, and then then I'll go to Europe for Lommel. For the MXGP.
Beautiful.
Because there's a lot of Fox works to be done there.
Yeah.
And then I'll be back in Florida for a week or two, and then TKO for a couple of weeks, and then go to Japan for X Game Tokyo.
Oh.
Then most likely I'll go by Melbourne to work on Aus-X and straight to Motocross of Nation and back to Florida and Paris and back to Australia, and I'm gonna see you a couple of times.
Yeah. I just think it's so funny how we always see each other at just the most I guess it's not random.
We belong where we meet. It's not random. It's not like, oh shit, you're there.
But we're always seeing each other in some crazy place.
So after this, we'll enjoy it even more.
Yeah. I appreciate this. This was hard for me to make happen too. And you've stuck in there for a long time.
I knew, I mean, it's location. It was not, I mean, every time I saw you, it's like, oh, let's do it. But we needed to cross.
Yeah. And we've just been hopefully, after I go next Tuesday, so after X Games, I'm going to go back to Oz for a couple of months. I've been home in a year.
Where's home in Australia?
Gold Coast.
Gold Coast, yes.
It's not really home anymore. Can't really call it.
Yeah, but it's...
But Gold Coast is where we go back to and spend some family time.
Yeah.
But hopefully when we come back in September, I'm just going to be here. I'll just get a 12-month lease and just have a place, unpack my bags, not go anywhere. And then hopefully then the scheduling, I'd love to do even more of these than I do, because it's just so hard to line up everyone's schedules all the time. So
I know it's difficult, but at least you're in the right place. So good.
We made it happen, and this was fantastic. You're a true gentleman of this sport, and I hope the people that have maybe never heard your name, that never knew the contributions, have a bit more context to all of the things that you've done. And like you said, we didn't even scratch the surface. So.
Yeah, no, it's just amazing to have a chance to actually tell your story, in such a good platform, because that's what you're giving people, And my good friend Justin Brayton, I remember watching his podcast from a beginning to end. I'm like, and it was like, God, that's, and you were still in Australia at the time. It was like you're not even. I mean, we had met at TKO and other places, but you were still Australian based, and I'm like, that's a long way to go just to do that.
Well,
and it was just before COVID, so that really.
We'd only just built. It was 2019, and I'd only just built. Like, we have a full blown studio in Australia.
Yeah,
like, full warehouse, the whole thing. Like. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, cool, gotta go.
Yeah.
But that one was cool. With JB.
Yeah.
That was after Aus-X, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. It was like, I would say 2019.
Yeah, it was 19. Yeah.
19.
Yeah. We just built the
19
studio.
was amazing. Like it was so much happening, and then we had to reset ourselves.
Just stopped, eh?
Yeah.
Everything just stopped.
Yeah, for sure.
You got any advice for someone like myself that's just trying to do good for the sport over the next 20 years?
Just look forward. Don't try to build up, and don't think about your own business plan. Just kind of look forward. People really enjoy what you're doing. I mean, obviously you're one of the good guys of the sport, so that's your best card. Just your opinion is your opinion. Some people will like it, not like it. It's just it's. As long as people pay attention, that's what matters.
Yeah. Well, I hope I can have, I guess, even half of the impact that you've had on the sport. You've done a lot of amazing stuff. So
You're doing well. I
appreciate it, brother. Until the next time.
Yes.
Thank you, mate.
Oh, God. That was fun.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.